dell, the farmer in the dell. Hi-ho, the dairy-o, the farmer in the dell. The farmer milks the cow, the farmer milks the cow.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the 23rd episode of Slime Time Sidequest, an official Dragon's Den podcast. This is Yangus the Legendary Bandit.
And this is DrippySlimeStar, aka not Palladium 3.
No, it most definitely isn't. How are you doing, Drippy?
Pretty good, can't complain. The weather's been holding out, the crops look good, and all the chickens are laying eggs.
Well, that's not exactly what I meant, but okay. You do realize that when we typically start out with some sort of joke before we jump into the main topic of our episodes. I mean, glad to have you here, but Platty and I, we typically banter back and forth. I laugh at something stupid Platty says. Platty thinks about telling me to shut up. You know how it goes. I mean, you've been on a few times,
Yeah, I have. I just thought the joke was that I'm not Platty.
Well, I mean, that's a good beginning of a joke, but we usually. We'll take things a bit farther, though, than just a sudden, switch of hosts or surprise.
Well, in that case, I'm sure I could come up with a few more jokes about Platty if I tried. Maybe something about his horrible taste in hockey teams?
Ooh, sure. Let's go with that, and let's get something else to try. Okay, take two. Drippy, thank you so much for filling in for Platty M3 tonight.
Yeah, of course, anytime. Thank you for having me. When you said his grandfather had suddenly passed away and left the family farm to him, and he needed to move to a new town nestled in a scenic valley populated with some not very choosy but very materialistic singles, I figured filling in for him for a few seasons was the least I could do.
Yeah. It surprised me too. Wait, I'm not exactly sure that's what went down. I mean, you have to remember, Platty's old as until dirt. He hasn't had any living grandfathers for decades now.
That's true. I think I got it a little mixed up, actually. I was chatting with him on Discord this week, and I see he left his corporate job recently. So, you're right, his grandfather passed away many years ago, but see, he gave him a sealed envelope back then. Platty never opened it, but recently he's been crushed by the burden of modern living, and the spirit started to fade before a growing emptiness. He lost sight of what mattered most in life, real connections with other people in nature. That's something I can really get behind.
Whoa. Hold on there, Nicholas Sparks. I think if you just clicked over to Platty's Twitter, you'll see what's really going on tonight for him.
All right, let me Twitter. Oh, what the puck? He's at a Tampa Bay Lightning game with his kids? Those poor children.
Yeah. Thing is, he didn't want to rub those two recent Stanley Cup victories too hard into your face here tonight, so... Well, he just let me do it. Sorry.
Well, that was awfully nice of him, that dirty son of...
Speaking of Platty M3 and his sons, he should be home soon and will likely join us in a bit. So, if you're a longtime listener and wondering, well, where the hell was Platty? Why didn't he start it out? Well, there you go. But we're happy that Drippy was able to jump in and help us out with the intro tonight. So, before we continue on, thank you for that, Drippy.
Yes, of course. Happy to do it.
So, let me see. Actually, we heard from Matt not that long ago. Our good friend Platty, I should say. Let me read this text he just sent. Home soon. Start off introducing Twinkie and other guests, and then talk those shitty Harvest Moon and Animal Crossing games. P.S. Don't read that shitty part. Oops.
Man, Platty can cut deep.
Yeah, I know all too well. But he wouldn't be Platty otherwise.
Well, with that said, let's welcome our farmhands for this evening. Say hello to AustNerevar.
You said it right.
MattCraft.
Hello.
And our first time guest, Twinkie.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yes, welcome, Twinkie. So this is a kind of a special night since, Twinkie's being our very first time being a guest here on Slime Time, both on Prime and on Sidequest. And whenever we have a new guest on, we like to ask a few Dragon Quest related questions, since this is the series that brought all of us together and to help, make this podcast a reality. So with that said, Twinkie, we're going to put you in the spotlight for a little bit here and just ask you a few questions that we usually ask the guest. Liam and Platty usually do this over on Prime Time, so I figured since you were a new guest for us here on Sidequest and Slime Time as a whole, we should give you the same treatment. So you ready to go?
Yep.
All right. Drippy, if you would like to swap off questions with me after I ask the first one, we'll kind of just go back and forth. You want to do that?
Yeah, that works for me.
Okay, so first question for you, Twinkie. How did you first discover Dragon Quest?
I discovered Dragon Quest when I was probably only 4 years old. My parents had a hand-me-down NES, and the original Dragon Warrior was one of the games, and I played it. And of course, I didn't know what I was doing. But after that, I didn't really play much of Dragon Quest until 7. I borrowed a copy from a friend. I got into that. And then Dragon Quest 8 came out. I enjoyed it. But I wouldn't say I really didn't get invested into the series until the DS games came out. That's when I started really getting into them. And I've been kind of a Dragon Quest fan since. So
Okay. Sounds a bit like some of our cases, because I know that the DS games helped bring in a new generation of fans.
Oh, definitely.
Let's see. Do you have... Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, Drippy, you go next. Sorry.
Yeah, so speaking of that, what is your favorite Dragon Quest game?
7, easily.
Oh, really?
My man.
That's my
I like 11.
All right.
11's good too, but 7 is definitely the best one for me.
7's a classic.
Yep.
Well, Twinkie, you just got like 1,100 awesome points for that one, so you're on the top of the list now for other guest spots. Okay. Anyway, so with Dragon Quest, having just so many different characters, both playable and NPC wise, who would you say is your favorite character or characters?
I'm a huge fan of gung-ho kind of characters, so they'd have to be Elena and Mori, easily.
Those are good.
And I also have a
I like
soft
those.
spot for Torneko too, but
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad there's
He's
another
my
Torneko
favorite.
fan.
Nice. So, is there any Dragon Quest game that you aren't a fan of? I'm personally not a fan of 7, but that's cool that you are.
Do we lose Twinkie?
there's a
That's
main
not
line though. Dragon Quest 2, it's not that I don't like it. I'll still play it. I'll still enjoy it. But when it comes to replaying older games, I would much rather play something else over it. And I absolutely refuse to play the original release. It has to have the SFC changes, absolutely.
I agree with everything you
Otherwise, but yep. So
Yeah, 2 definitely is one that people are the most like hit and miss on, for sure. Like, I think even back
Right.
when it was like brand new, that people were kind of hit and miss on it.
yeah.
Let's see. All right. Well, obviously, all of us play a lot of games and do that kind of thing. But what would you say is your favorite hobby? Is it gaming, or might it be something else?
I'm pretty boring in one note. It's gaming. Because it's not just video gaming in general. I am also into tabletop RPing, like Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder. I do like to attend gaming events, competitive events, or just laid back events, stuff like that. I also like to play chess and stuff like that too. So,
Okay.
Nice.
Good little selection of games to pick from then.
oh yeah.
Yeah. Nice. So, other than Dragon Quest, is there any other game series that you really like, or any genres other than like RPGs that you really like?
Honestly, I'll play just about anything. It's kind of hard for me to like pick a specific game or genre, but I will say that I really heavily gravitate towards RPGs in general, whether it be JRPGs, CRPGs, ARPGs, MMOs. I also enjoy playing real-time strategy games pretty often too. Games like Age of Empires 2, Supreme Commander, and the like. I also like to play like life simulator games once in a while, like laid back, relaxing games like Animal Crossing and stuff like that too, here and there. So to balance it all out.
All right. Real quick, before we move on to the next question, have you ever tried playing the Pikmin games at all, Twinkie? Those are pretty good I think they're supposed to be based on like real-time strategy, and I've always
Pikmin?
enjoyed them.
Yeah,
Pikmin.
I played one, the original. I haven't played, and I also played the Wii release of it where it has the motion controls. I played that one too. But outside of that, I haven't played 2 or 3 or the 3DS game for that matter. But so my experience with the series is limited. But I really did like what I played of them.
Well, I'll just go ahead and tell you, you're better off just skipping the 3DS entry, because that's really nothing like any of the other ones.
Isn't that like a platformer?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's weird.
Gotcha.
It like, even though I've been like a Pikmin fan for a long time, I remember when that one was announced. It's like, oh, I don't know about that one. But I would recommend Pikmin 3 on either the Wii U version or the Switch version. That's a pretty good entry to get into, especially if you haven't played one of the games in a while.
Yeah, I'll have to pick it up sometime. I definitely really liked the first one, so it's definitely on my to-do list.
Oh yeah, that's a series that I definitely recommend anyone who likes Nintendo stuff and they want to try some of their not lesser series, but not as popular ones. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
All right. This question I don't actually have listed on here. I'm going to save the heavy hitting question for you, Drippy. But one question that I happened to think of related to Dragon Quest that I didn't put on here earlier was what would you say, Twinkie, are some of your favorite monsters from the series? All of us love different ones like slimes, golems, all that good stuff. What would you say would be some of your favorites?
Mimics. I absolutely love mimics. And it's not just Dragon Quest. I like mimics as like the concept of the monster itself. Rather being Dark Souls or something. I just like mimics.
Good answer.
I think Dark Souls mimics would terrify everybody.
Oh yeah, definitely. But I really do like mimics. I don't know why. I just really do.
That's a good answer. Mimics are awesome, especially the Dragon Quest ones. I really like how they look, and
oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, especially D&D and stuff like that. We laughed, the table laughed, we stabbed the table, all that stuff. So,
yep.
All right, Drippy, we gotta ask a heavy hitting question.
Yeah, this next question, it's really going to see if you're worthy, of coming onto this podcast. It's really important question. So how do you really feel about Twinkies?
I like them, but I don't love them. Not as much as I used to, anyways. I did get this nickname from going to LAN parties like years ago, and I'd always bring a couple boxes of Twinkies to these LAN parties, and nobody knew what my name was, and so people would refer me to as like Twinkie guy or that Twinkie dude over there. And so I kind of just adapted the name, and I've just got been called that since then. So
I love that. That's awesome.
Yep. Well, there we go. Now we finally know. I always wondered about that.
Yep, that's the story of it.
Oh, that's funny. And I remember this quick little side story here. I remember I once jokingly said on the Discord for the Dragon's Den, it's like, well, every time Twinkie and I play Animal Crossing together, he always whips out a box of Twinkies and goes, "Here we go, gamer fuel."
Well, you're not far off, I suppose.
I'm glad that story had some truth to it then, because that was totally made up. Oh, okay. Well, as we said before, thank you for being on tonight, Twinkie, and we're happy to have you on as a first-time guest. And from all the conversations that we've had on the Den and from the Discord, whether it's just private messages or in group chats, this definitely seemed like a genre that you've put a good amount of time into with different games. So we're happy to have you on tonight, along with Drippy, Aust, and MattCraft.
Thank you.
All right, well, boys, I think it's time we get our suspenders on, get ready, and get some sleep and wake up at the crack of dawn, because it's time we get some harvesting started. And what better place to start than with Harvest Moon?
So which one of us is introducing Harvest Moon?
Yeah.
Well,
I can do it. I mean,
all right. You know what, Oz, you said it. You do it.
All right. So Harvest Moon, does it really need that much of an introduction? I mean, it's more or less the first farm simulation game that everybody played. I guess kids nowadays probably start with Stardew Valley, but back in the SNES days and the N64, Harvest Moon was really it. I know Rune Factory was around. When? Back in the GameCube era, or was it after that?
That was like GameCube DS era. I think the first game of that series was like 2005 or 6. Something like that. So
that would have been its only competitor, and I don't think it had quite the market share that Harvest Moon did. But yeah, it was a well-known title at the time. In Japan, it was called I never know how to pronounce this exactly, but it was called Bokujo Monogatari. That's the actual name of it, and it was localized by Natsume in America as Harvest Moon. And I explained this in a different podcast or a different episode of this podcast earlier on about the naming and how it's different now. But nowadays it's called Story of Seasons. But Story of Seasons, Harvest Moon, we're talking about the same thing more or less. I think the Super Nintendo title was the one that got the most popular. I don't think wasn't that the first one?
Yeah, the Super Nintendo entry was the very first one of the series.
Yeah, and there were some Game Boy titles of it as well, I believe, but they weren't quite as popular. The one I started with was Harvest Moon 64. I know Platy emulated the SNES version. He's talked about that a lot, and that was like what introduced him to ROMs. But it's your basic everything that you see in farming games nowadays. It's more or less originated here, although probably without a lot of the quality of life changes that the genre is introduced now. Because you got to remember when was the Super Nintendo version was like what 1992, 3. That was quite a while ago, and even on up into the GameCube era, you're going to be missing a lot of the quality of life changes that the genre has, pioneered over the years since. Does anybody else have anything else to say about it? I mean, the series as a whole, rather.
I don't really have much to add. I just remember when I was a kid, Nintendo Power advertising Harvest Moon 64, and I always remember that game because it had kind of that graphical style that even to this day I still really like, where the characters have this 3D-esque look to their sprites, kind of like if you guys have ever played Donkey Kong Country, or have seen, just to go off a more recent release from this year, like how Saga Frontier Remastered has its characters kind of look like these semi 3D models, even though they're, they turn them into a sprite. That was what I always remembered. And I remember, seeing the different animals and talking about, your farming, things like that. And I always just remember that it was just the simple, like, I don't know if it is supposed to be a kid, but he always reminded me of a kid. It was just the boy running running across the screen. He had the blue hat that's on backwards and his trusty dog running behind him for like the artwork. Yeah. Otherwise, sorry, go ahead.
I just say he's definitely a kid.
Oh, so he is supposed to actually be a kid.
Yeah, at least I'm guessing probably around 10, but it could be a little older than that.
Okay.
Do they have marriage in that first one then? Because I know that's one of the big things in the later games, and that kid kind of looks the same age. In that.
Marriage is definitely in Harvest Moon 64. I don't know about the Super Nintendo.
It was.
Well, see, that's why I've always been so confused about that, even years later, because I know marriage is a big part of it, but whenever I see the characters, to me they always look like, and they kind of have that chibi look to them. For anyone who's not, anybody listening who has not played a game from the series, they always have that sort of chibi look. So it's kind of hard to tell if they're supposed to be an adult or a kid, or what's the deal.
Well, it's different throughout all the games. Maybe I was undershooting with saying he was 10. I was just sort of going by the whole Pokemon rule. But I could buy 14, honestly, with the way Japan is with age of consent and stuff. And honestly, the whole rural aspect, you got, obviously that didn't happen anytime recently, but back in the old days, people got married younger just because that's what you did. So, I mean, I could buy 14, 15. I mean, he's definitely supposed to be a young man taking over his grandfather's farm. Or I can't remember in 64. Is it your grandfather? Or it's a relative of some kind?
I'll have to take your word for that one, because unfortunately I don't know.
That's definitely the tone, the idea of it. And that's something that's like Stardew Valley. This tone really reminded me of Harvest Moon 64 in a lot of ways. And that was one of the things they did, was you take your grandfather's farm over.
I will say from this series, I don't remember what the GameCube entry is called, unfortunately. There's one that, I'd have to look it up. But there's a GameCube entry where it's sort of the same idea, where you have to take over for a relative who passed away. Mm-hmm. And as you go around the town, it kind of does, if I remember right, does the Animal Crossing thing of sorts, where it's pseudo real-time, or mostly real-time, whatever the time you have you set to your GameCube clock, it'll be set to that. And I always remember this GameCube entry in particular, because from a video I saw where it was talking about some of the NPCs you come across, there's this weird hobo caveman guy that you can give him trash, and he'll be like, "Oh, thank you." Gosh, I have to look up who that is now, because I gotta figure out what game this is.
I think it's A Wonderful Life is the GameCube one. That's the one that I didn't get more than 10 minutes into that one.
I played a lot of that one, but I don't remember it being real time.
Let me see. Ooh, we got a few actually. We got Harvest Moon, A Wonderful Life, Harvest Moon, Magical Melody, and Harvest Moon, Another Wonderful Life.
Yeah, that one is basically the same as A Wonderful Life, but it's like the girl version.
It must be A Wonderful Life then, because the artwork, at least for like the main guy, is what I'm thinking of. Let me see if I can find the character I'm talking about here. Oh, as soon as I typed in Murray, yep. A Wonderful Life is the one that has like the hobo caveman guy I was talking about, whose name is Murray.
I sort of remember that. Again, I don't remember anything about it being real time, but yeah, I definitely remember. Or I sort of remember that character.
I could be misremembering too with the real time thing. I just remember for it being like one of the first GameCube ones. I think they had tried something kind of different with it. I know for sure that your character can end up like dying, and then that's game over then.
Yeah.
What? How would they die? Is there combat or anything?
Well, apparently it's just like old age, because there's a video I remember seeing back in college. I don't know if any of you guys know who Peanut Butter Gamer is over on YouTube.
Yeah.
But so he always has videos going over the different games in the series. One of them was A Wonderful Life, and I remember at the ending, he's shocked that his character actually died, and was like, "Wait, what?
Wow.
My game's over. What happened?" Because the guy who gives you your farm in the first place is like, "Oh, the poor kid. He didn't." Just as time came, unfortunately.
Is that like the bad ending?
I don't know.
It goes on forever.
Wow.
That's a long game, so I haven't finished it, and I keep coming back to it like every 5 or 6 years and put some more time in it. But like, man, it just keeps going and going from my memory. So it would be kind of interesting, if you eventually grow old and die.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to recommend that to you guys on here tonight, and anyone who listens. Go over to YouTube and look up that video of a Peanut Butter Gamer talking about Harvest Moon, A Wonderful Life. I could be remembering wrong for what game in particular that was in, but I know that there was a game in the series where he talked about and was like shocked that there was like that sudden game over, quote unquote. So go look it up if you're curious about that. I'm pretty sure it's true, and hopefully I'm not misremembering, and if I am, then my apologies.
I watched his.
Go ahead.
I watched his what was the one they remade? The Friends of Mineral Town. I watched his video on that, and it almost sold me on the game, but I wasn't ready to dive into it at that point. So yeah, I'll take a look at that video and maybe try one of the GameCube ones one of these days.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that A Wonderful Life is the one where you can accidentally kill your farm animals. Maybe I'm misremembering this. I'm gonna have to Google it. But I seem to remember like using the sickle in my field and accidentally hitting my cow.
Oh my god!
Google this because I could be an old memory. I could be remembering it wrong.
In 64, there's actually a glitch where you can actually harm your farm animals and basically reset their affection counter to make them like you by hitting them with a hammer. It's actually a speedrun strategy they use for the N64 game.
Oh my god!
Yeah,
Gosh.
yeah.
These animals are masochists, man.
From my Google, it says that they can die of sickness. So maybe I'm remembering it wrong, or maybe I just happened to hit it with a sickle at the time it died. It died naturally.
You didn't help it either way with the sickle.
I just
A
remember
friendly
that.
neighborhood Nintendo game.
Also, there's a bug in my version, my save. Like, there's a package that you could order like supplies and have it dropped off at your storage room, and like every time I try to go open it, the game crashes. I just remember that for some reason.
All right.
But if I don't know how much time we're allotting to Harvest Moon as a whole.
Oh no, you're good. If you have anything else to say, go right ahead.
Yeah, well, the one I have the most nostalgia for really is Harvest Moon 64, and I just I have all these memories of like renting it from the video store, and that was the way I played it for the longest time until we finally got our own cartridge. And when we finally bought our own copy, it was the summer that we had an above ground pool. We just got a pool, and like I remember my parents being like, "Why aren't you swimming in the pool? It's like, come on!" It's it was this super cool thing, and it's like I was so addicted to Harvest Moon 64 that even when I was like in the pool, all I could think about was like my farm, and like who I was gonna marry, and like that was the coolest thing to me, that you could get married and like have a little family in the game. And I don't think I don't think I ever made it past year 3 because I was just terrible at it. So like year 3 would come around, and this was when these games were brutal. Like if you're, I don't know what secret system they used to calculate your score, but if it wasn't high enough, I think your father or something would be like, well, you'd get a letter in the mail the first day of each year, and your father would be like, well, you're obviously not succeeding at this life, so it's time to come back home, or something to that effect, and it's essentially game over, and you had to start over. That was always so depressing because you'd lose everything, like you'd lose your wife, your kid, and just have to.
Oh my god, that's brutal.
Over. Yeah, and it's like Stardew Valley. Even if you suck at the game, like he lets you keep playing. Which I guess
Harvest Moon didn't pull its punches, I guess.
No.
I did not.
And the last thing I want to say is I've gone back and played this recently, and even though like I love this music and just have so many wonderful memories of this game, man, it is hard to go back after all the quality of life changes that Stardew Valley has introduced. It's like the menus are slow, switching out items is slow. It can be a slog to get through with all the modern changes in gaming nowadays to get back to. I know this is true with RPGs in general, but man, I don't know what it is about Harvest Moon 64 that's sort of hard to get around for me, even with all my memories attached to it.
Yeah, no, sometimes when you go back to certain entries of a series, you have to either kind of remind yourself, like, oh man, that's, this was, this is just how it was, or you have to either got to adapt or just be like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
I mean, even A Wonderful Life has that problem to a degree, and Friends of Mineral Town, the original Game Boy Advance version, it's not quite as good as the remake in terms of quality of life stuff.
Yeah, when I first played the original, I had that issue where I did pretty well for the first year, but like pushing past the first year, that game was just absolutely brutal because of the lack of quality of life changes that games like Stardew Valley brought. It was really difficult for me to go back to it.
Yep.
Some definitely. I've heard that those games can be pretty brutal too, and I've heard from even some people who have played Stardew Valley that sometimes the game can throw like some curveballs at you. I don't know if that's 100% true or just people, had trouble with the game, and maybe you guys can confirm or deny that when we get to that point. But I really did not know that. I honestly didn't know that Harvest Moon could be that cruel of a mistress sometimes.
Yeah, man, this was the 90s.
Yep.
That kind of discourages me now. Now that, we hear all these, you can die and it's brutal. It's like, oh, maybe I don't want to go back to a GameCube one. Maybe I'll look into that remake on Switch or something like that. Because, the quality of life thing, I mean, that happened to me, not specifically in the genre, but I remember playing Oblivion a little bit before Skyrim, loving Skyrim, and then going back to Oblivion, and I just couldn't do it, just the amount of quality of life things just in games nowadays, it makes it really hard sometimes to go back to certain games, and even going back to even that GameCube era can be pretty hard.
Yeah, like even with like just kind of moving away from Harvest Moon a bit too, like when you go back to some games of a series, or if you kind of jump around depending on how releases are, whatever you feel like playing, I at least find sometimes you either have to kind of look up ahead of time what to expect, like gameplay wise or difference wise, or you just have to see what there is and just be like, okay, just gonna have to deal with it. I mean, really, I think sometimes when you research a series that, like when I was getting back into Dragon Quest, for example, back in like high school, I had to figure out, how the games were a little different from one another. Like before I even started playing 5, I was looking up a bit like how the monster recruitment system works, so I didn't just jump in and like, slam my head against the wall or something like that.
Yeah, you definitely have to do a little bit of spreadsheeting with the early games with that stuff too. So.
All right.
Yeah, and I'm just going to say, if you are a huge fan of this genre, you should at least try one of the older Harvest Moon games just to see where it all came from. And that's pretty much closes out what I have to say on it.
Okay. I will just say real quick that I, from not really having played these ones, I still remember that N64 game being advertised, and Admittedly, if I went back and played an older one, I probably would try that one out first, just to see how it is, and maybe if I really like it, play some of the later ones. But I can say that even though this is a series I've never played myself, I have heard plenty about it. Heard plenty of people really enjoy the games and get into them. I've now learned that they can just kick you and put you down super fast if you're not playing the exact way the game might be kind of wanting you to. But I mean. That sounds interesting to me. That the game can just like totally throw you a curveball, or just be like, no, hold on. But I think with that, does anyone else have anything they want to say for Harvest Moon before we move on? Any final thoughts?
No, I'm good.
No.
Okay. Well, in that case, maybe we should give farming a little bit of a break here and, go move somewhere new. Live out in the forest, live with animals, start a new life for ourselves. And what better way to do that than with Animal Crossing? This is a long-running Nintendo series that's appeared on a few of their systems throughout the years. This one actually got its start on the N64 in Japan, and I don't have the Japanese official title up, but roughly translated, it would come out to be Animal Forest. It was released, or it got a re-release about a year or two later in Japan on the Nintendo 64 again. That was called Animal Forest Plus. And eventually the game was brought over to America in, let me see here, make sure I got the right date. It was brought to America in 2002 on the Nintendo GameCube, which also featured all of the additions that Animal Forest Plus got on the N64, as well as some brand new features and changes for the Western audience. From there, the series has seen a ton of new entries, both from the main games and for spin-offs. You have Wild World on the DS, which came out in 2005. You have City Folk that came out on the Wii in 2008 or 2009. Pretty sure it was 2008. You have Animal Crossing New Leaf, which came out in, I believe, 2013. And you have the newest game in the series, Animal Crossing New Horizons, that came out in early 2020 when everybody was stuck at home. So
Perfect timing.
Yes. To jump ahead real quick with that one, that was definitely a game that a lot of people used for some interaction, since you couldn't really go anywhere and had to be cautious about what you did. So that game was definitely one that came out at the right time. I know it got delayed a bunch, but I think in the long run it was a good time to release that game because everybody was stuck at home. But along with the main 5 games that we just listed, there are also a few spin-offs for the series. There were some e-reader cards for the GameCube release here in America, which will help you get some special items, some bonus unlockables, things like that. There was Animal Crossing Happy Home Designer on Nintendo 3DS, which allowed you to go in and actually help different animals and different villagers help design their homes, hence the name of the game. And actually a lot of those features ended up getting put or implemented into New Horizons when that came out. And then the other spin-off that I'm sure everybody holds dearly to their hearts is Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival on the Wii U.
That's a thing.
A game that everyone loves and nobody was mad about or annoyed with at all.
Or that you couldn't get for $5 at Toys R Us like I did, just for the amiibos to use in the 3DS game.
At least you're not like me, literally paid full price on that release. So.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. I bought it mostly for the amiibo because I was in the amiibo craze during the time. So, but.
I think that's why a lot of people ended up buying it, just to get the amiibo. Nintendo.
Honestly, I think so too. Yeah.
All right. Well, since we have a few different games to talk about, why don't we just go ahead talk about the original on the GameCube? Matt, I believe you wanted to talk about this one and had some things you wanted to discuss about it.
Yep. Well, when you got started playing it, really dug into the nitty-gritty, you didn't know that there is a game within a game on Animal Crossing. And depending on how you went about doing it, you either got it from Tom Nook lotteries, or like you guys are just talking about, using e-reader cards. I am talking about fully emulated Nintendo games right there in Animal Crossing. If you got the item, you could play the game whenever you wanted. And they ranged from the normally obtainable ones being stuff like Balloon Flight, Donkey Kong, Excite Bike, Pinball. From the little island that you could get to through gameplay. You can get Wario's Woods. I think it says baseball. I never got either one of those. Nintendo giveaways, once again, e-reader cards and stuff like that, which would be Soccer, Donkey Kong Jr. or 3. I don't know what Clue Clue Land D is. If anyone knows what that is, speak up.
Yeah, Clue Clue Land's kind of an interesting one. The way it controls is a lot different from other. It's kind of like a puzzle game of sorts, like a weird take on Pac-Man. It's one where you have to use the your left and right arms of the character, Clue Clue, and get yourself to make these different patterns in the. I've only played a little bit, so unfortunately my memory's hazy. But basically, you have to move around the screen, avoid the enemies, and basically you're creating this pattern. So, like one pattern, for example, looks like a happy face, or one pattern looks like a flower, one looks like a triangle, or different stuff like that as you move around. I think it was one of those earlier NES games, so probably a little more simple. Unfortunately, I don't really have a whole lot. I know I'm kind of mumbling and rambling on this point, but I mean, it is a fun little game. It's definitely one you have to get the hang of as you play it, but it can be entertaining. I've played it for a few minutes here and there, and I've enjoyed it. Just the controls are a little funky fresh, so to speak, to get used to.
I feel like that's on the Switch NES app. I'm looking it up. It looks like it actually is. It's on the NES. Yeah, Switch online.
There's also the arcade version of it's on the Switch as well.
Oh, nice.
I had no idea there was an arcade version.
Yep.
There's a set of 4 that everyone always wonders how to get. 2 of them. Just like you guys said, arcade. The original arcade version of Mario Brothers and Ice Climber are available through the North America-based e-reader cards. It says specifically Series 4. And they're crazy rare. Then we've got the original Super Mario Brothers, which is available only through a Famitsu giveaway from 2001 to 2002. So that puts it on the list with this last title that you can only get with a cheating device, and that is The Legend of Zelda. Now that I've looked through the list a couple times, makes me think that they just put Zelda in there to test battery backup as far as the little NES ROM they programmed into it. Because most of these other games on here look to be password only and such. So why try to put Zelda on there for everyone if it ain't going to work? My guess is they left it on there, intended to give it out, and just never came of it.
Yeah, because when I was looking up, when you'd mentioned you were going to talk about the NES games you get in the game, and I was kind of looking it up, there are ones that you can get with the special password system that's, I believe it was implemented in Animal Force Plus, and they, kind of expanded upon that on the GameCube release. But there's a few you can get that way. There's some that you can get from villagers, or you can just randomly find them. And then there's, I think, a set of 4 or 5 that are supposed to be obtainable through Nintendo events specifically. But then you have the Legend of Zelda one you were just talking about, Matt, that is pretty much unattainable unless you use other means to get them.
Let's see.
Which were the ones that you said were super rare? Not the unobtainable ones, the super rare ones.
That would have to be where is it? I had it right there. Mario Brothers and Ice Climber. You can get Mario Brothers Ice Climber with e-reader cards.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I had both of those. Because I definitely remember all these cards. I'll let you get back to what you were saying in a minute. But a lot of these NES games I discovered through this game because I had an NES, but I just didn't have the money to buy all these games when I was that young. So when I got the Animal Crossing, I was buying these little booster packs from KB Toys all the time, and I had an e-reader, so that's how I experienced a lot of these NES titles.
I think that's how a lot of people, in the GameCube era, got to play some of these games for the first time, too. Mm-hmm. Because I remember I did not have Animal Crossing on the GameCube. It was just one that, unfortunately, just because of, being a kid, I didn't really have all that much money, and I can only really ask for games at certain points of the year. Yeah. As weird as it is to say, kid me had priorities for what games he wanted and didn't want, so...
Yeah.
So Animal Crossing was never one that I admittedly was I want to get that one. But I do remember in Nintendo Power that they always would have, for quite a while they did this, they would always have one page dedicated to Animal Crossing on the GameCube, during that era. And it would always show off different sets of either like seasonal items that you could obtain, different outfits, some of the rare or some of the more rare or like one-time thing that you could really only get at like specific points of the year. And they would include the passwords for them. So you could go to Tom Nook's, type them in. You would be able to get them then sent to your house. So it was kind of cool that Nintendo Power did that and, included those codes. So if people, say, for example, Halloween rolls around, you're not able to get either all of the Halloween items or, you're busy that night. So you're not going to really be able to play the game at all. That there was another way that you could obtain those things. So I thought that was pretty cool that the game had that sort of functionality with the password system.
Man, I had all of these cards and we moved, and now I don't know where they're at. I'm looking for them. But yeah, are you guys done talking what you wanted to say on this one? Because I have some memories.
Pretty.
Sorry, go ahead, Matt.
No, I was just saying I'm good. Actually, no, I'm reading something here on Cutting Room Floor. Apparently, Red also sold a blank NES, like a generic console item. And whenever you try to use it, it would say, I want to play my NES, but I don't have any software. It turns out that in the past couple of years, they figured out that this item actually scans memory cards for special files that contain NES ROMs.
Huh. That's interesting.
On console, on TCRF, it's actually showing them playing Mega Man 1.
But didn't the way it normally worked is the games were an entire console themselves you put down in your house?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was like you had to, if you wanted all of the games, you had to have room for them.
Yep.
But yeah, man, I have a lot of memories about this game. I'll go ahead and preface and say I'm really not that much of an Animal Crossing fan anymore. I've tried over the past few years to get back into it, and it's just, I don't know. I just think the genre is not for me anymore. Part of what was so special about it was when I was a teenager, and really I'm younger than that. Probably when I first got it, it was probably about 12 or 13, so just barely a teenager. But it was just having all this time, especially during the summer, to do these real-time events, and it was such a cool experience to have like a town that you shared, because each town could have, or each Animal Crossing town could have 4 different houses, that player houses. You couldn't all play at the same time, but you shared like a community board and stuff. And me, my cousin, my mom, and my dad would all play and like leave little messages and stuff on the board. And we had like a town orchard, and it was just like the coolest thing to me as a kid, getting to do that kind of community thing. And then even on top of that, if somebody else had a town, you could put their memory card in the second slot and then get on the train and go visit their town. And that was like mind-blowingly cool, going to other towns to get like rare fruit and bring back to yours to sell for like what, 2 or 3 times the value of your native fruit. I'm trying to think of like all the little memories I had, but basically it was just, I think that the thing that sticks out in my mind the most is when I brought it home the first night. It was really late at night when I played it, and it was in the winter, so like the town was all snowy and stuff. And I just remember thinking how cool it was. Like there was an igloo. I don't remember if you built the igloo or if somebody else built the igloo or if it was just there in the winter, but you go inside the igloo, and I find myself after winter passed like wanting it to get back to winter in the game. Just to experience like that again. But I didn't want to cheat because, I don't know, I just felt more realistic that it followed a real-time clock. I didn't want to change the clock to whatever season I wanted to visit. But yeah, those NES games, my cousin and I played a ton of them, and I had a lot of the cards. And that game was how I discovered Punch-Out, which is one of my favorite NES games, even to this day. We played so much Punch-Out in Animal Crossing.
Nice. All right. Anybody else have anything about the original before we move ahead in the series?
The music's the best in the original.
Absolutely. 100%.
KK Slider.
Yeah. If they had a soundtrack pack that you could buy for New Horizons on Switch, I would probably play it a lot more.
What, you don't like that 2 p.m. music that plays in New Horizons?
I don't have a problem with the modern music. It's just not the same.
Yeah, I can sympathize with that. I didn't start with the original, but with Wild World, there really hasn't been any other Animal Crossing soundtracks that compare to me for Wild World or City Folk, since they both use the same music for the most part.
Yeah, it's probably
Here in the originals are good too, but there's just something about Wild Worlds that I really like, because it's has nice melodies, but it's kind of quiet too. Lets you absorb your surroundings.
It's probably whatever the person was first introduced to. Like, to me, the GameCube is just like, that is Animal Crossing's theme music to me. But I'm sure it's the same way, like, for you with the first ones that you played. It just sticks out in your mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like, I'm not like saying like, oh, I don't like the GameCube music. I think from hearing that soundtrack and like watching videos and stuff, there's some songs where I hear them and it's like, oh yeah, that's a pretty catchy one, or that totally fits the mood. I will say that from having played different games of the series, that typically the music does a pretty good job matching the mood of each game, or like how, just using New Horizons for an example, since it's supposed to be this big new entry on the GameCube, or on the GameCube, on the Nintendo Switch, that features a lot of new features like the island decorating and stuff. Having this more it's not full orchestra, but these arranged pieces with real instruments and stuff kind of gives it its own vibe. Whereas like with the GameCube and N64 originals, they have, it's more of that top-down, almost diorama sort of look. So the music matches that sort of style pretty well, I think. If you guys get what I'm saying.
Oh yeah,
yeah. It's the Switch version has great music. There's a Doom Animal Crossing crossover music video that came out back when the game came out that I think is just fantastic, that you guys should listen to after the podcast is over.
Oh yeah, I love the Isabelle and Doom guy crossover pictures and like the silly animation stuff. It's just one of those things that's like, well, that's really weird, but at the same time it's really funny, because like my favorite one that I've seen is where maybe it's the same one you're talking about too, Oz, but there's one where like it shows Isabelle like fighting off the demons with the Doomslayer, and then it cuts to Isabelle handing the Doomslayer a present, like wrapped up, like they're in an Animal Crossing village. She has like this present wrapped up. She hands it up to him. She's got a big smile. He opens it up, and it just has like best friends on it.
Yeah,
it's pretty silly.
All those crossover memes were just excellent when those two games came out.
And now the funny thing is that with today being Tuesday, when the last Smash Brothers Ultimate Direct happened, we actually found out that Doom Guy was added into Smash as one of the Mii costumes. So now you can officially team up Isabelle and Doom Guy together whenever you play Smash. So dreams do come true for some people.
Yeah, I think it's a meme that's never going to die at this point.
I wish they would coincide their releases. I wish they would coincide their releases for the rest of those two franchises' life.
Oh, that would be so funny if that happened.
That'd be great.
Again. Yeah. That'd be great if like New Horizons got like some big update, and just by chance, like that's when the next like update or DLC for like Doom Eternal or a brand new Doom game or re-release or something comes out. That'd be really funny.
Yeah, parents would throw a fit, so we probably won't ever see anything like that. But if it were any other, if the two franchises were the same rating, I guess you probably might actually see something like that.
It would have been great if on Doom Eternal's Switch release, if they snuck Isabelle in there somewhere, like just as like a little keychain thing that happens to be on one of your guns. Not like her actually fighting things, but just like as a funny little item you could pick up or something. Like those bobbleheads that you could find of the Doom guy.
There's a mod in Doom 2 to have Isabelle follow along and help you out, and she'll like throw you presents and stuff. It's pretty great.
Oh, hilarious.
That's great.
That's pretty funny. Okay, well, since we kind of mentioned Wild World, I will talk about that one real quick. So Wild World came out on the DS in 2005, and this was one that I wanted to get because at that point with the DS, I really did not have that many games for it. I think by that point, the only games that I really had were, I think it was Super Mario 64 DS. I had Mario Kart DS, and I think the other one by that point was probably just Nintendogs. So I really did not have that many games for the system. So I was like, I need to, find something else. And because at that point I was mainly still like focused more on Nintendo published games, I didn't really pay attention to like a lot of the third party stuff or anything like that. So when Animal Crossing Wild World was announced, which is the DS entry, I thought, that'll be one to check out. That might be interesting. And it was like I said, it's the first game that I ended up playing. And as I said before in the original, I knew the GameCube one was out there, but just gaming choices were kind of limited. So when the game came out for the DS, I'm like, you know what? I need something new. I'll give this series a try. I never played the GameCube one, so we'll go with Wild World, see how that is. I definitely have to say that I was surprised how the game worked when I first played it. I didn't realize when I was reading up about it that it was going to be based on like real world time. I really just always kind of assumed it was just one of those games where, it would always be daytime or, time would only pass when you let it. I wasn't used to games that kind of ran on a real world clock or had a real like sense of like time progression like that. Only one that I could even think of at that point that I would have played with that sort of feature was Majora's Mask on the N64 from the Legend of Zelda series, and even that one doesn't like run on real world time at all with how the in-game clock progresses. But I, even though it was a really different experience, I really did enjoy it. It was fun, figuring out how to play, how you earn money, meeting your animal neighbors and everything like that. And this was actually one that I played a lot with my cousins. Everybody and their grandma, in my case, literally my grandma had a DS. Everybody owned the system. So it was pretty easy, to either meet up with my cousins at like family get-togethers or, when I'm at their house or something, we'd pull out our DSs and we'd visit each other's towns and, just explore around, trade fruit or items, things like that. And it was always funny whenever you would go over to and so in Animal Crossing Wild World, everybody who happened to play the game had to share a house together. So if you like say shared the game with like your brother and sister, all three of you would be living in the same house. And if you would ever go upstairs, you would see the other people who are not active in the game just all sleeping in their beds. So it was really funny whenever I would play with one of my cousins who also shared the game with her sister. I would end up going into her house, go up to the top floor. You see a person just lying in the bed there and won't wake up no matter what you do. Like they're going through a sleep animation, but they just will not respond to anything. Or like if you try and like push the bed or anything. So Wild World was one that didn't have a lot of the events that the GameCube release had. I don't know if it's just because of system limitations or if they just wanted more of a broader appeal since it was on the DS. A lot of people had that system. But Wild World only had like a few events. It did have, and something I honestly wish was still in the Animal Crossing games, the Acorn Festival, where you would find all of these different varieties of acorns, scattered across your town. You could find them in trees. You'd find them on the ground. They'd be buried. And whenever you turned them into the not mayor, Cornimer, he would give you items based off of the fungi series. And that was probably one of my favorite things to earn because I remember getting all of those after playing Wild World a ton, like the first time the Acorn Festival came along. So getting that full set and having that as like my upstairs bedroom was pretty cool because you have like this cool like mushroom lantern, a big mushroom table. You got a TV that's like kind of a bendy, windy looking one. Your bed looks like a portobello mushroom. It was like cool little features like that really made me stick with the game and enjoy it so much. And what really sold me on the game too, and just kind of opened my eyes to all the creative stuff you could do, was when Nintendo Power had this big article about the game that covered this full town decoration project that the guys there ended up doing, where they made the town look like it was floating on an ocean. Like they took the palette sprites that you can customize that the Able sisters made, ones that looked like there were shark fins in the water, made them look like there was like rocks sticking out of the water, some with bubbles, different sort of features like that. And they ended up covering this whole town with. They showed different screenshots of the stuff that they put together with this. And even though you'd see like some of the villagers like walking across the water, this quote unquote water tiles that they had, it was still a really cool thing to see that there was something like possible like that with this game on the DS. It kind of blew my mind, and I read through it over and over again. And I tried to create something like that myself by making my town, kind of themed after a Mario Party board. So it was definitely a game that I put a lot of time into, and one that I definitely got invested in. I loved getting like some of the surprise Nintendo items from connecting to Wi-Fi or like playing online with others, or when visiting my cousins, like you'd end up then having a case where this little cat girl would be stuck in your town and she'd be like, I can't find my mom, I need to get to blah blah blah. So you'd have to meet up with your friend, or hop online and be like, oh, okay, we'll take you back home, or we'll take you to your mom because she's over in this town. And she's like, oh, thank you so much, and then you get like a special item for it. Yeah, that's about my experiences with the start of the series. Any of you guys play Wild World at all? Any thoughts on it?
I played it a ton.
I played it some back in high school.
Same here back in college. And we didn't really do it too crazy, but we enjoyed it.
It was my senior year of high school, and I remember sharing a save with my high school girlfriend at the time.
Yeah, I shared a file with one of my stepbrothers, so I wouldn't play it too much, but yeah, it was the first one that I had played. I mean, they had told me about the GameCube one, but that was, the first one that I didn't get too far into it, but I enjoyed what I played. I really feel like it is suited for a handheld, more than like GameCube and the Wii and stuff like that. Just the pick up and play, for 20 minutes, 30 minutes a day really fits the handheld better.
Yeah, I agree.
Does anyone remember using those stupid Nintendo branded Wi-Fi dongles to connect to the Wi-Fi?
Yep.
Playing Animal Crossing with them?
I think I used it for Pokemon, but I remember that.
I ended up buying an entire router. Actually, the first time I got Wi-Fi was just to play Mario Kart DS, and so that's how I started connecting with Wild World myself. Actually, Wild World was actually kind of like my one game that actually got me into online gaming, actually, come to think of it. It was kind of like my first online experience with actually socializing, interacting with our players. And I think that kind of helped set the floodgates for my MMO addiction.
Animal Crossing was your start, but also your downfall. Yeah. Definitely, I think this one was kind of like my case with you talking about the original one, Aust, where, it's the first game I played and was one that I got really into and really, made the most out of it.
Yeah.
And I think with this series, and like even with like Harvest Moon and some of these other like life sim games and farming ones, if it's like your first one, you could get really into it, and you just get, I wouldn't say addicted, but you keep thinking about ways you can improve your save file.
Yeah. Like you mentioned Harvest Moon, like that shit has a very special place in my memories, and so does the original Animal Crossing. Like what you mentioned about how you're blown away by the real-time clock in Wild World, that's the way I was with the GameCube one. But I have some memories about the DS version as well. Like I said, I played it with my high school girlfriend a lot, and sort of got that same shared town feeling that I did with the GameCube one, although not to the same degree. I do agree that the series does better on a handheld. Like obviously the Switch version speaks for itself, but there were some improvements in this version, the DS version, that were pretty apparent compared to the GameCube version.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's weird because like Wild World had a lot of improvements, but then it had some like weird steps back too, because like it got rid of a lot of the holiday events for some reason. Yeah. And like you just had like a few just like generic ones, or like I know the one that everybody kind of makes fun of is one that's called Yay Day, where all you're supposed to do is like go talk to your villagers and you write them a compliment. Like that's it. And it's just other weird stuff like that.
They probably had to cut some stuff just for cartridge space.
Well, that's what I figure, and I think, and I could be wrong on this, but my guess is they did some of that too because they wanted to have this one have a bit more of a broader appeal, so they didn't really include specific holidays or things like that for different regions, so they could kind of make it more of a universal release, so to speak. I guess. Yeah. I don't really know how else I'd put it other than that, but it could be also there was just limitations with the DS cartridges too.
Yeah, that makes sense. I remember that the technical aspect of this game was impressive to me because I'd known it as a GameCube game, and realizing that the DS could play games that were, almost basically just N64 games. Because, really, the GameCube game was just an improved version of the N64 original, the Japanese original. It was pretty impressive that the Nintendo DS could pull this off.
For sure. Let's see. I really don't have a whole lot to say on City Folk or New Leaf. I didn't really put a whole lot of time into those ones compared to Wild World and the next one, New Horizons. Do any of you guys have anything you want to say about City Folk or New Leaf before we jump into New Horizons?
I skipped City Folk, so I have nothing to say about it. I did play it for a week, but that was like 5 years ago.
Yeah, I got the New Leaf. That was a 3DS one, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
I bought it, played it for about 30 minutes, realized that Animal Crossing really wasn't my thing anymore, and then never played it again.
Yeah, City Folk was kind of weird. I did get some time out of it in high school with some of my buddies, but honestly, there were some weird encounters with that too. And I'm not gonna tell the full stories, but basically, one of my friends was a little picky about whenever you did town visits about what you could and couldn't do, so it just kind of soured my experience with the game. So eventually I just kind of shelved it. And with New Leaf, I was really excited for it because I'm like, oh, this will be, like the DS one. And it's a cool concept too, because you come in, Tortimer, who's the mayor from the previous games, he's like, well, I'm retiring. You're the new mayor now. Congratulations. And he ends up going off to live on a tropical island. And that's when you start working with Isabel. You start making like town projects and things like that. And I really thought for sure this would be one that I would get into back when I first got it. And weirdly enough, it really wasn't. It's really only been one that I've played like in summer times when I would play on my 3DS more and more. But I would always play it just like in like July or August, but I would never want to pick it up in like the fall time or the winter or anything, because I never had that sense of like, oh yeah, I want to go back to the game. And it's weird because I never thought the game was bad by any means. It just didn't grab me as I was expecting it to,
Was this one, how popular was it?
Well, I think this was before New Horizons, it was like one of the popular ones, because I remember reading back in the day that like in Japan alone, like this game pretty much sold like 50-50 for like who was buying it. Like a lot of women were buying it, a lot of men were buying it. Like it was very popular. I don't know how popular it was over here in the States, but as far as I know, it did pretty well for itself.
Yeah, I guess I was going to say I didn't remember many people talking about it, but I probably just blacked it all out because, like I said, I don't know. It just maybe it's aging or whatever, but this is when the series stopped holding much interest for me. I think it's the real-time clock, really. Is like I felt like there was nothing to do, and the way you're supposed to play Animal Crossing is like in short bursts anyway, and that just wasn't my thing anymore.
Yeah, I'm kind of that way too, where it's like I'll get really into the games for like 1 to 2 months maybe, playing them like every day, and then I'll just stop completely. I mean, that happened, once we get to New Horizons and stuff like that. We can go more into that, where they kind of just stopped updating it. But I remember for New Leaf, when they added the Amiibo support, that's when I ended up coming back again for a few more months. But, it just kind of just faded away for me. Kind of lost interest in it.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
Yeah, that was a big update, too. I don't know. I have never updated my game with the Welcome Amiibo update that they put out for it, but I remember watching the announcement for it. It's like, man, they added a ton of stuff with that. It's crazy. But it just didn't make me feel compelled to go back to it.
Yeah, and they released all the Amiibo cards and stuff like that, and I was tracking those things down, and it was a good 2 months and stuff like that. And they gave you like the option to like basically restart your town. Like you could do something, and like Tom Nook would like basically like evaluate your town and give you like millions of bells to basically just like catch yourself back up. But even then, it wasn't enough to keep me that interested in it. I think you get like daily tasks and stuff like that, kind of added in that stuff. And you could go to the little hippy dippy campfire place. I don't remember what the hell the guy's name was, but you get special items and stuff. But that's what I remember about New Leaf.
Yeah, I remember with that update in particular, and I'm really surprised that they didn't implement this in New Horizons. If you use certain amiibos of Nintendo characters, there would be animal-fied versions of them you could possibly get as villagers for your town. Like there was one of like Wolf Link from Twilight Princess. My favorite one was that there was a pig named Ganon, which was really funny.
Yeah, so that is still in New Horizons. you can invite them to be they come to like the campground, and then you have to you basically have to get lucky with them. Like to be like, oh, you need to play a game, and what card do I have in my hand? And it's really just luck based, But yeah, they do still have that. Because that was what I was doing with the amiibo cards, was just tracking them down. And I remember some were you get some for $1, but some were going for $20, like Drago and stuff like that. Rolled became really big in New Horizons. So there were definitely, people's favorites that were more expensive.
Yeah, I believe the Anka card went up for $50 at one point.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine. Just, can you imagine, if that'd be really funny if Nintendo put a reference to that for the character and be like, yeah, I'm really famous in some ways, just random dialogue when you talk to him. It's like, yeah, I'm really famous for some reason. Everybody always wants me around. I can't figure out why. But speaking of, since Drippy brought up New Horizons, we should probably talk about that one, because that was one that both Twinkie and I have put a ton of time into. Twinkie, absolutely. How about you go ahead and start off and tell us about your thoughts on New Horizons and your time with the game?
Despite the fact that it's my most played game, Animal Crossing game, I'm close to $1,000 on it now, but I'm kind of conflicted on it. And this kind of goes back to what you guys were talking about with New Leaf. Is it's not that I don't think the game is not well. I guess it's not appealing to me anymore, but it's not because of what they're doing with the game, but it's what the lack of. They with New Horizons, they started pushing the whole customization stuff with terraforming, making bridges and stuff like that. And I think that's great. But the thing that bothers me is that it feels like they got a lot of these life sim elements that I absolutely loved about Animal Crossing over the years and just kind of put it on the back burner, or just didn't put much thought into it. Because I remember playing even the original Animal Crossing. I would talk to my villagers every day, and they'd always have something different and unique to say. Sometimes, you get repeats, but after a month of playing New Horizons, they started saying the same stuff, and stuff like that. And also, they don't do things like they did in New Leaf, they don't come visit your house and talk with you and hang out. They don't do any of that stuff, and I think that's kind of one thing that turns me away from New Horizons. Is just the lack of taking away that life sim aspect of it. It's a great game. I love it. I love customizing. Don't get me wrong, but I feel like New Horizons has taken a lot more steps back than forward for me in that aspect.
So 1,000 hours. What do you do in all that time? I think I put maybe that's an honest question. I put maybe 50 or 60 hours in, I think.
Right.
And I was just running and start. I wasn't doing anything. What do you do in all that time?
Yeah, if you looked at my island and how undeveloped it is, everyone asks that question. But
oh, it's not undeveloped. What are you?
Oh, there's a lot of areas I need to work on. But I played the game because when the pandemic happened, so I really didn't have much going on with social distancing, so I needed something to kind of add some structure to my daily routine. And New Horizons came out at the perfect time for that, because it gave me something to do. And for the first couple months, I was super into the game. I was constantly trading furniture online. That took up a lot of time. I was constantly looking up design ideas, copying design ideas, and stuff like that. But I think, honestly, the biggest time sink that I had with the game is that you have these two special NPC visitors that come, Flick and CJ, I believe, and you can give them 3 of one fish and they'll give you a model of it. And I have this really bad perfectionist attitude with Animal Crossing games where I'm trying to get every single item. I want to complete the catalog and everything. So I tried to catch 3 of every single fish and bug in the game. And some of the rare ones took me countless hours to get. So out of the 1,000 hours, I think that's what took up most of the time, is just countless fishing and bug catching, trying to get those duplicates. But
wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, it took a long time.
Yeah, there are definitely some bugs and particularly fish that can be real pains in the ass to get multiples of. I can tell you I got super lucky with this game, and I've ended up catching enough coelacanths to turn into CJ to make a model. And I got the model for that just by coincidence, I got that this morning because he was at my town yesterday. And you want to know, I was expecting the coelacanth model was going to be pretty damn big just because of the size of the fish when you catch it from the ocean. That coelacanth model is super small, and I was honestly very disappointed about that. It's like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, because if you get some of the insect ones, the insects one, they have some of the like the Atlas moth, they have like what they call grand models, I think they're called.
Yeah,
and they're like
gigantic.
Really huge, and they look really nice. But the fish ones are just kind of like there, you know.
Yeah, it's just so it's so boring. I was like so disappointed with how small that coelacanth one was. So just to be a smartass, I put the coelacanth on top of another coelacanth tank I happen to have. So it's like a little baby one sitting on top. But so New Horizons, for my case, and thank you, by the way, Twinkie, for sharing with us, your experiences and everything. With New Horizons, this was one that, like I said, way at the beginning, it definitely made a splash in 2020 with a lot of people because of the social distancing and everybody being stuck at home because of COVID, all that stuff going on. And in Twinkie's cases, he told us, it kind of gave him a sense of a daily routine since he wasn't able to really go anywhere. And I think a lot of people would be able to relate to that. In my case, I knew about the game, and a ton of discussion was going on, like on the Dragon's Den itself and other places. Was never really one that I was like jumping at the gun to go and get, but I eventually did get it. What was it? I got it for Christmas in 2020, and I started up the game at the beginning of January because I was like, I'll just wait for the new year to roll around, and we'll get the game started then. It's started that like January 2nd, and it's October. What day is today? I don't remember. 5th, October 5th. Thank you. Today's October 5th, and I've already put like 400 hours into the game. It's not as impressive as Twinkie's count, but I don't think I've ever really had that where I've played a game for that much time in less than a year. But, I mean, it kind of is like the same case with Twinkie where, with the wintertime and when I started up and with work and, all that stuff with all the COVID things going on, even still now, there were just times where I just would have to be at home and I just, it kind of gave me a bit of a routine when I couldn't really go anywhere. I couldn't really get, like I said before, I didn't really get that deep into City Folk or New Horizons, I didn't really get that into City Folk and New Leaf, but New Horizons, it's really confusing since if you have two games in the series with new in their name. But New Horizons was one that really clicked for me, and I'm not really even sure why, but it just, like, I had that same, like, sense of connection, so to speak, like I had with Wild World, like, way back in the day. I really, really was happy about like all the island customization you could do, like putting around different items, like, changing the landscape with extra water or cliffs, whatever you wanted to do. There was just this constant, there's the constant stream of guests to your island rather than like how in the older games it was just more so, just by sheer chance, like every like 4 days there might be a new person or like, this random person shows up. Now it's where you always can expect a special guest like every single day. I kind of like that routine, and even though it's completely random, I still like that. I really enjoy that there's a ton of events in the game now, and like even when like I happen to play the game on my birthday, and even the game for that one, like in the past games, it's just some villagers just show up and they're just like, here, happy birthday, here's a gift for you. And this one they actually go beyond that, and they're like, hey, you know what, come over to such and such's house, we got something to show you. And you walk in there, like the lights turn on, they got like a whole party decorated for you. So it's cool that they, took a lot of the events and really pushed them, like pushed the boundaries of what you could do with them. I will say that from all the time that I've played the game, though, my biggest gripe by far is that they added breakable tools. That was just so dumb. I get that they added the crafting, and I do like the crafting. I like that you can, create a lot of these special items and things like that, and there's tons of ways you can get recipe cards, or, if you collect a certain enough amount of a material, your character will be like, I have some ideas. I could use these rocks for, I could use this iron ore for. But, oh my god, whoever decided that, breakable tools, that's a good idea. Whoever put that in needs to just be taken to the back room and just be told, don't do that. That's not very good. Because there were so many times, and so many times this happened, even like playing it just recently, where you're in the middle of like trying to catch fish, or you're trying to hit rocks to get ore, or rocks, or trying to find a gold nugget or something like that, and your shovel just immediately breaks, and it like throws off your routine then, because then you have to go make a new shovel, or you have to go and buy a new one from Nook's Cranny. I really, really wish that the golden tools, there is a way that you can like revitalize an item, so to speak, if you customize it by changing the color with one of the customization kits, but you can't do that with the golden tools. And I really don't understand why the golden tools were not like your reward, for going through all that, and they like a permanent upgrade, so you didn't have to keep remaking every fishing rod you break, or every bug net you break. That's really my biggest gripe with the game by far. It's just that I don't get why they implemented that, and I really think it just kind of takes away from the game. And it's probably because they added in the crafting thing, but I really don't like that. I really wish that the golden tools had been like the permanent upgrade that you could get, so you didn't have to worry about your stuff breaking all the time. Other than that, I really do like New Horizons. Like I said, I've gotten a ton of time out of it. It's been fun to just keep like popping the game in. Like recently, I've just been going in and like I added like some paths in my village. I've done some redecorating. Now that I set my island in the southern hemisphere instead of the northern hemisphere. So even though it's Halloween going on right now, I also have cherry blossom trees. So you have this kind of weird contrast of Halloween and springtime. But I've really enjoyed that there's, all these customization features now in the game. And really, that's what I've enjoyed going back to it more and more, and why I put so much time into it. Because originally, when I made my island, I wanted to base it off of a starred island from Dragon Quest VII. And, I had a theme idea going into it before I wanted to design stuff. But now, really, I just kind of do whatever I want to. And, like, now recently, because of the Halloween stuff and recipes, I've been decorating my island with, like, pumpkins and, skeletons, like these gravestones, things like that, to kind of give it that sort of Halloween vibe. And I really enjoy that the game has that ability of customization, because that's something like with Wild World in that article I brought up, that's something that really caught my eye and made me really want to get into Animal Crossing more and more. So I'm really glad that they've gone a step above and beyond to let you do that sort of thing in New Horizons. And I think that's about it for my notes on that one.
Yeah, I'll just jump in real quick too. And I know you guys meant you talked a lot about routine. That was the thing for me as well. Checking in before going to work. I mean, I was furloughed for a little bit, but I remember, pre-ordering the game, playing it, at midnight when it came out and stuff like that. But yeah, it was definitely a morning routine and stuff like that. I got into selling the Nook Mile tickets, was able to pay off my loan. I had never done that in an Animal Crossing game, but paid off my loan pretty easily. And yeah, it was just a nice thing to kind of check in with. And I know they're having a direct some point during this month, so I'm wondering, what they can add to really bring people back in.
So I've played a little bit of this. I didn't get it when it came out at the start of the pandemic, but I got it last fall, I think, primarily because my wife wanted to play it. And, any game that she wants to play, I'll gladly play along with her if it's got multiplayer functions, just to have a game to play with her with. But again, Animal Crossing really isn't my thing anymore. This one, I mean, I definitely see how it's probably the best in the series. It's got, the terraforming, which is great. It's got all these extra online features and crafting and just all this extra cool stuff. The thing I've noticed about it is all the social events that you can do, like going to other people's islands. And like, gosh, during the pandemic, people were having virtual parties in Animal Crossing because they couldn't do it, in real life. And I've gone to other people's villages, primarily Nawaria's from, does the Dragon Quest X videos. She's been on the Slime Time Prime podcast a bit. I've gone to her village for different community events and stuff that she streamed. And even though I'm not crazy about the series anymore, like just getting to do those sort of social things is definitely pretty fun, and shows the game's strength that even for somebody who isn't super into the mechanics anymore can still find something that's pretty interesting to do. I think right before I quit playing, I set myself the goal of recreating the hometown from Dragon Quest V in it, and I got fairly far in terraforming and stuff, and I don't know, I guess I just lost my desire to keep going, mainly because my wife stopped playing, and And I don't know. I've seen some other people do the same town, and they did a much better job than I could ever hope to do. But yeah, overall, I definitely see how this game got so popular, and the only thing I think it's missing is an official Doom crossover.
Truly, that's what this game needs more than anything.
Yeah.
I mean, we now have, like we said before, we now have Doom Guy Mii costume coming to Smash Brothers. So let's
Right.
take it a step beyond and have an official Doom Guy costume in Animal Crossing.
Let's get some Doom furniture in. I want to get like a Cyber Demon statue or something, you know?
Oh God!
Throw Isabel, and I don't mean off a cliff.
Just get a rocket launcher, so if Red tries to sell you forgeries, you can just blast him. Oh boy. But yeah, like you talking about events and get-togethers, Aust. I've actually played this one a lot with both Woodus or Woodus, I guess is how his name is actually said, and with Twinkie, because like Twinkie's helped me out with getting different pictures or paintings that I need from Red whenever he goes to his town, or he's come over to my town and he's helped me out too. Same thing with Woodus, where we've kind of done some item trading and he's helped me get some stuff that I was looking for, and vice versa. And it is fun to pop the game in, and even if you just play it for a little bit with like a buddy and help him out with something, or just kind of explore around your islands and kind of share like, oh, this is what I've designed this for and this and that. I think that's a fun part, is when you just get to like share that stuff with other people, and whether they say something or not, it's just I think that's one of my favorite aspects too, is just kind of that community sense you can get, or like just share it with a buddy and be like, hey, come check this out, or here I found this thing that maybe you might want. So that's one of the reasons why I've liked New Horizons so much too, because I've been able to get a lot more use out of the multiplayer than like I did with Wild World, or excuse me, I got more out of it than like Wild Worlds or even like City Folks, where it had more or where it like started out with the online functionality. But
Yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it came out in the perfect time for that, because when I first got the game, a lot of my older like high school friends I haven't talked to in years were actually playing it. So a lot of like old high school friends I haven't talked to in years were playing it. I think it helped out a lot during the pandemic to kind of help each other out. We was always giving us tips, always fishing at each other's islands. I think it was really great.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah, I know we need to move on, but I think that was the pandemic. Did they plan to release this right once? Or was this release date planned before the pandemic happened?
Yes.
So
When the Nintendo Direct happened in 2019, Nintendo said they had to delay the game, but they were planning for a March 2020 release.
Well, I knew they had released and decided to, like, things that they were planning on having released, they just added in later. I read that somewhere, and that actually kind of worked to elongate people's enjoyment of the game, because these events just sort of happened as time went on.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they didn't add some seasonal events until that season came around, correct?
correct.
Right. So yeah, and that really couldn't happen with any other type of game except one that's based on real time.
Yeah, I'm not really a huge fan of the whole games of service thing, but I feel like New Horizons is like a game that's pretty well designed for it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think they did part of that too because they didn't want people abusing like time travel, because it's something that actually, Oz, you touched on it a teeny bit, but apparently that's a really big issue with Animal Crossing, that some people like abuse the hell out of that.
It's an ongoing dispute with the fandom.
Well, the game is it's not really truly single player anymore, but my logic is, for a single player game, at least the way the GameCube one was, play it however you want.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
If you want to time travel to your heart's content, go ahead. I didn't enjoy playing the game that way, but I don't know, with Animal Crossing being as online as it is, I'm not sure where my stance on that would lie.
Yeah, time travel was never really something I used anyway with the series. Like, the only time I think I've ever actually done it was when the fireworks stuff was going on in August, and I happened to, like, every weekend I kept missing the chance to see, how it starts off. And I remember messaging Twinkie, and I'm like, I finally time traveled because I wanted to see how this damn thing starts. So I'm like, I'm tired of missing this, man. I want to see it. I don't care if it's short and sweet. I don't care. I want to see it at least one time.
Yeah, I'm pretty strictly anti-time travel myself, too. But I kind of broke that rule a couple times because in New Leaf, because I was trying to do the events, and I think it was the Easter event that I missed out on. So I'm like, if I time travel like 4 or 5 hours, But I used to, kind of going back to Classic, I shared my file with 3 other friends, actually, because I was practically living at his house all summer, and we would always constantly have arguments if we should time travel or not. So,
I can see it now. Who screwed up our freaking pumpkins? But Matt. He did it. He's not watching football this weekend.
Okay. Well, I think that about wraps up our discussion on Animal Crossing. I think we talked about that one a lot longer.
Oh yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but I didn't realize we were going to talk about that one this week.
There's a
I
lot
expected that one to go a while.
We each had memories from like every entry in the series.
We did. Well, I think on that note, I do believe our guest, our host of honor, who was away at a game that Drippy was not very happy about, has
Oh no,
finally
I
arrived.
ain't happy. You lost 3-2 to the Panthers, you loser.
Let me tell you, I was sitting about 15 feet from Steven Stamkos the whole game.
Oh,
We
is he
had
is he finally better now?
Apparently not. They had a lot of starters out because
It's the preseason. Makes sense.
So I think about halfway through the second period, we kept wondering what was going on because we were like in the middle deck, but I had got front row seats kind of like in one of the middle decks, not in the lower bowl area.
Yeah.
And we kind of noticed there was a lot of people gathering kind of below us, and they kept moving people on. And finally, at one point, my wife kind of leans over and looks to the right, and the like luxury suite directly below us, yet one over, has got all the Lightning players in it that weren't playing there that night.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
if I had a hat, I could have easily just tossed it down to the guy and probably got dragged out by security. But
Nice.
I mean, yeah, they were 10, 15 feet away. So yeah, for the rest of the game, we kept leaning over like, oh, what did they think of that play? What are they doing? As there's like 5 fights breaking out at once.
Right. Well, I hope you had a good time. That's awesome.
Oh, it was
Awesome.
good. The kids loved it.
Nice.
So yeah, I'm glad they came to my town instead of
Nice.
having to drive all the way to Tampa for a game for once.
There you go. All right. Well, now that we have good old Platty back with us, I think it's time we, we talked about that a little bit in the opening, or Drippy telling us all about Platty's unfortunate life events going on with his poor
That's right.
grandfather passing and everything. So, I think it's time we finally make a trip down to Stardew Valley.
Yeah, so, we started the conversation off with Harvest Moon, and this game is absolutely inspired by Harvest Moon. I think the creator has really talked about that, farming and relationships and stuff like that. But, you can do more with it. There's a whole dungeon crawling aspect, you can go fishing and stuff like that. But, this whole game was created by one person, Eric Baroni, or Concerned Ape. And eventually, the ports, and I believe, there's a small update team were handled by Chucklefish and as a publisher, and just, they've been constantly updating it. So I think they're in version 1.5, and a few of the things that they have added are like different farming layouts. So you can have like a river farm or whatever for more fishing. You can have a mining one for more wood cutting or something like that. They actually added multiplayer as well. For me personally, it didn't click until I got it onto the Switch. It's got that perfect gameplay loop. So it's not a real time. Each day I believe is like 12 minutes or something like that. I think every 10 seconds is like 10 minutes in game or whatever. So I owned it on PC and PS4 and actually Vita as well. But it wasn't until Switch, and actually, just kind of an aside, my PS4 copy is signed by Eric Baroni. I reached out to him on Twitter, and he was just really nice, and I was able to sign him my copy. I wrote him a nice little note. He wrote me a note back and stuff like that. But I specifically thanked him for one of the characters in the game, Shane, his 2-heart event. It really felt like, the character was talking to me personally, not my character in the game. So more on that. Every character, there's bachelors and bachelorettes. they have events where when you reach a certain, heart level, I don't know, kindness or whatever you want to call it, but you can see just small cutscenes that give a little bit more information about their backstory or who they are. So the way you do that is by giving them items and just talking to them every day. So the person that I usually go for is Leah, and I always win her love by giving her 2 salads a week, because that's the max amount of items you can give, and each character has likes and dislikes. Well, salads are really easy to obtain. You just buy them at the saloon, and I'm just like, here you go, Leah, and then like all of a sudden she loves me because she's like, wow, these salads are so great. But anyways, on that, Shane, he's the other character that I really like. He's my drinking buddy. Whenever I see him at the saloon, I like to buy him a beer because I am horrible and feed his addiction, and then he becomes my best friend, and he helps me unlock blue chickens for my farm. So, other than tending to your farm and building relationships and stuff like that, there's kind of an overarching goal, and that's to complete a collection of items and restore this community center that's, abandoned, that the evil Joja Mart Corporation, so Walmart, I think that wants to take over and use that for like their warehouse. You can actually side with them. You can completely block yourself out of the good route, I'll say, in quotes, where you're building up the community center, and you can actually turn
what
it into
evil
a warehouse.
players do that?
I've done it. I've done it once.
Yep, evil bastards do that. That's who.
Okay.
Yeah, but I really love this game. I mean, again, it didn't really click to me until I got the Switch. I don't know. I probably got like 60 hours on Switch, but I also have somehow like 60 hours on Vita as well. And just kind of just further things more about like, if you are interested in this game. I mean, I feel like if you're listening to this episode, you know what Stardew Valley is. You know what all these games that we're going to talk about. But I really recommend looking up Jason Schreier's book. It's called Blood, Sweat, and Pixels. And it's about developments for specific games and stuff like that. And there's a chapter on Stardew Valley, and it talks about Eric Baroni and basically how he became a millionaire overnight. I mean, he was making this game, and all of a sudden, boom, his game sells $1 million, a million copies, $15 a pop, dude. You're $15 million, up. So, really, really great insight and stuff like that. There's also a YouTube channel, probably not well known. It's called Worth a Buy. And if you just look up Worth a Buy Stardew Valley, it is probably the funniest review I've ever heard. It's just this British guy just going on about, what the game is and stuff like that. And you think he's really going to hate it, but he ends up like really loving the game. And it's just a really funny one, a really funny video to watch. But yeah, Stardew Valley is absolutely one of my favorite games. Just the variety of things to do, still updating it and stuff like that. A lot of, fan art and stuff like that. It's a really great community of people to play a game with.
I'll cut in here while we're waiting to see who else wants to talk about this. As Drippy said, I'm pretty much just like you. I think I've got like 60 or 70 hours on both my Vita copy and my Switch version. And I think it was the Vita copy that I got like right as the Switch version came out, because I waited like 2 years to get a Switch. But I got it the second it dropped on Vita, and my goodness, I think it was it never got updated, other than a little update right afterwards. If you play the Vita version, you're still on version 1.1. But yeah, I loved the heck out of it, man. I played it. It was all I played for about a month after I got it, and gosh, there was a glitch on the Vita version. There are 2 different mines that you can go down. The second mine is where you start getting the highest level crafting stuff. And what's that? What's the really good ore?
Iridium, I believe it's called.
Yes, I was going to say the purple one, the iridium. That's where you can get it. You can get it from the second mining area. And in the Vita version, there's a glitch that's still to this day never been glitched out or never been fixed, because they released it as a 1.1, did a little patch after a week or 2 for some tiny little bugs, and then the Vita version hasn't been touched in 3 years and never will be. Like most people's
Vitas.
Vitas.
They confirmed they're not going to update it anymore. So yeah, it's still stuck on that 1.0.
Yep. But there's a glitch with that. When you go into that second mine, whatever the layout is of the first floor, every floor is like that. And it just repeats the same floor over and over again. sometimes after about 15 or 20 floors, it will switch it up. Or if you fall down a hole and like drop 20 levels or something like that, you'll get a new design. But holy cow, I used to exploit that glitch all the time because I would just go run over there on certain days. And if it was a layout where I could find the stairs quickly, then I could fly down levels. Or if it was one that had iridium on the first floor, then I knew I'd find a piece of iridium on every floor in that exact area. So I'd pretty much go explore the first floor, and if it was a really good one with a lot of good stuff to exploit, I'd almost pass out there practically just getting stuff. And then I did a Stardew Valley podcast, I think about 2 months ago, towards the end of August, or maybe mid-August, and I hadn't played video games in a couple weeks. I was just burnt out. Joker 3 Professional burnt me out this summer, and I was like, I just need to read. I need to do Perler Bees or something. And then talking about Stardew Valley, just kind of like I see MattCraft saying, like, I'm going to have to spend a couple hours starting this tonight. Talking about it, I was like, you know what? During the podcast, I bought it for my Switch, and pretty much August, September, put another 70 hours replaying the game, seeing a lot of cool stuff that, suddenly I'm going from version 1.0 to 1.5, like, ooh, that wasn't in there what I played 3 years ago on Vita. That wasn't in there. And just seeing all the cool updates to it was really neat. And yeah, it was just like you guys have said on your other games, it was just routine, and I knew where things were. I was getting surprised a little bit here and there, but it was just that routine of like, oh, I can do this. I know where this is going to happen. I know when that's going to happen. I know if I go talk to this person. I'm all about giving everybody a beer, or there's just certain crops that I'll give to everybody all the time. Walk around giving.
Easily obtained items are, great to build quick relationships.
And, oh gosh, I can't even think of her name now. The purple-haired gamer girl. Abigail. Yep. I'm always about Abigail.
Yeah.
I love it when she tells me I know how to handle a joystick. One of the hard events, you play video games against her, and if you can beat the little in-game, that little shooting one with the cowboys.
Journey of the Prairie.
Yep. She'll say something like, oh, wow, you really know your way around a joystick. But that's not surprising. Boom! You had me, Abigail.
Yeah, so everybody was listing off their play hours. Steam tells me that I have 324 hours in the PC version, and then I know I have about another 70 on the Switch. So it's no shock that this is my favorite game. It's definitely my favorite, or it was my favorite game of the 2010s. It's definitely the best farming game like this that I've ever played. It's miles above Harvest Moon. But let me back up to how I discovered it. I bought this game on a whim the day after it came out. I just saw it featured on the front of the Steam store. It wasn't out on any consoles yet. Just came out on PC. It sort of came out of nowhere. I know Eric Baroni had released some screenshots of it a couple years before, but there was no early access, not a big fanfare about it. I just discovered it one day and was like, oh, this looks like Harvest Moon. And I bought it, and this was, February of 2016, I think is when it came out.
I was just checking that. Yeah, February 2016.
Yeah, I remember getting it, and I just started a new job, and I come home every night. That's all I did was play this game until I had to go to bed. And I remember not feeling this way about a game since Harvest Moon 64. It brought back a lot of the same feelings I had when I first played that one. Tonally, I feel like it's very similar to that entry. It has like all the events, you get married. It seems to harken back to that game quite a bit, and I've seen others say that online as well. Maybe it's confirmation bias on my end since that's the Harvest Moon I started with, but it to me it brings back a lot of the same memories. It's just so good in like every aspect that it attempts at, like the combat, the crafting, the farming, just all the relationships that you form with the other townspeople. The music is on point. The graphics are perfect for what they are. Like I think this will age very, very well. All of the quality of life aspects you could ask for over previous games in the genre are just phenomenal in my opinion. And he keeps adding good content to the game. Like I remember when they were when he was teasing multiplayer months and months and months before it actually came out. Like I wanted it so bad because this was a game that my wife enjoyed and I knew we would play together, and we have a lot since that update has been applied. We played a lot of multiplayer on the Switch version of the game. That's probably where most of my Switch hours lie, is playing multiplayer with my wife. I'm not sure what else I can say about it without praising it too hard. It's just it's good at what it does. It's hard to go back to any previous games in the genre after playing it. And I know there's a big modding scene, but honestly, you don't even need to touch the mods and still have a good time. I know there are probably tons of excellent mods, but like the game is good on its own. It doesn't. It's not like Skyrim where I feel mods are necessary. Like I think Stardew Valley stands on its own. That's pretty much all I have to say about it.
Twinkie, you've played it?
Yeah, a lot. I've only played it on PC, but I did log about. I just looked it up. I logged 330 hours into it, but yeah, I really enjoy it. I haven't played. What was the recent patch? 1.5?
Yeah.
Yes.
I played 1.4 and before, but I haven't played 0.5. But I really don't know what else to add that hasn't been said already. It's a really great game. I absolutely love it. Though the only one thing I will disagree on, and I have mentioned this before, is I don't like the combat that much. I feel like it's kind of shoehorned in a little bit, and it's just kind of boring to me, I guess. But outside of that, like I love almost every single aspect of this game, absolutely. And I probably put 250 hours into the vanilla version unmodded, and I haven't even touched the surface of the modding community yet. So I can't even imagine how many hours you can actually put into this game when you start modding it. So, but I do absolutely love it.
Yeah, there looks like there's some quality mods out there, but like you, when I started playing, there weren't a ton of mods because the game had just come out. Other than like portrait mods, that's the only thing I really played around with at the time.
Right.
And there was a fishing difficulty adjuster mod that a lot of people were using because I hear a lot of complaints about the fishing. Which
it can be pretty tough.
I think
it is tough. Yep.
I think he's actually nerfed that in recent updates because when I play it unmodded, it feels totally different to me than my memory of it. But
I mean, it does get easier, I think, when your fishing skill goes up. But yeah, I remember that being a big thing when the game came out. People talking about the fishing, and I kind of agree with the combat, kind of feeling tacked on. I mean, you can go into the mines and stuff like that, but I mean, like I feel like if the only thing that you were doing was mining, it could get a little boring. So just adding that little bit of something else to do down there adds just a little bit more of variety.
Yeah, it would get boring if all you were doing was mining. I don't feel like the combat is crucial to the game. Like it's not a critical point in the gameplay, but I think it's mainly just there to make mining a little interesting, spice things up.
Definitely. I'd played so many Rune Factories, 4 of them, before I even played this one. I guess 5 Rune Factories. I played 5 different Rune Factories before I played this one. So even though, I love combat in the Rune Factories, going back to this, it was like, okay, I'm kind of glad there's some combat here, but this is nothing compared to what I've seen in a similar game before.
Yeah, it's not that I'm not opposed to it being in the game. It's just, it feels like it's missing a layer or something to keep it more interesting for me anyways. It just feels a little too simplistic, but
that's fair.
Yeah. Every other part of the game is so excellent,
right?
And it's like polished to a shine that like having that kind of combat where everything else is so amazing, you're just like, all right, let's go into combat, and you're just like, oh, all right,
yeah.
So this is a thing. Not that it's horrible, but I think it pales in comparison to the polish that's put on all the rest of the game.
I've never played Rune Factory. I know that it has combat. Is that better than Stardew Valley's?
It's a big aspect of the game. It's half the game. Whereas Stardew Valley, it's a tack on. Rune Factory is built around it. You've got, most of them have 6 or 7 different kind of weapons, and there's crafting where, like Rune Factory 4 itself has something like 450 different weapons, I want to say. Maybe not that many, but it's in the hundreds, and there's like 7 different types of weapons. You're kind of talking like Monster Hunter. You get to pick the style of battle you want to do. Like, do you want to swing a broadsword? Do you want to be someone who's shooting arrows? Do you want to, have a sword and a shield? You're picking your your combat type and doing it.
That's probably why it never bothered me, is I didn't have any expectations set up by Rune Factory.
Mm-hmm.
So with you saying all that now, Platty, I guess now this is going to be more than a perfect time to do a Monster Hunter episode, right?
You know, I think there's like another hockey game on. I'm gonna get you off of here. Unless I could tell some stories about Monster Hunter, because let me tell you, I got some stories about it.
Do you have 2 of them?
I've got 2 stories.
Oh,
And that's it. So anybody else want to talk Stardew Valley? Or
If not, I have to head out because I need to go to bed for little baby Trippy. But I would like to thank everybody tonight, for letting me co-host and stuff like that. And it's always a pleasure to talk to all of you guys.
Thanks for filling in for me at the beginning there.
Welcome.
yeah, it's good to have you on, Drippy.
All right, we'll talk to you guys later.
All right, you take care, man.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, because Stardew Valley is like my favorite game, so I don't want to leave anything out if that. But I think I said pretty much all I have to say about it. It's really good.
Well, you know what? I actually got a question about Stardew Valley, just because you put so much time into it. So I've heard that after like a certain point, that the game like kind of evaluates what you've done, and like the from like the 3 years or however much time passes. Does the game then like stop your progress? You got to restart, or are you able to continue on after that point?
It doesn't stop. It keeps going. It does sort of the Harvest Moon 64 thing where your dead grandpa comes back as a ghost and he's like, "Here's how you did," and I think he was a little bit harsher in the 1.0 release. I think he changed the dialogue after some people complained that Grandpa was being too mean. But it doesn't punish you. There's you had at least when I played it to completion. Yeah, there was if you didn't do some things right, or if your invisible score wasn't high enough, Grandpa would say something about it. But it doesn't punish you in terms of taking your progress away and making you start over. You can keep going. And actually, as the game stands currently, like I think Grandpa appears every year, doesn't he? And he evaluates.
All you got to do is bring a diamond up to his shrine.
That's right.
And he will reevaluate you whenever you want.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, this is one that I've heard plenty about it over the years since its release. I've never. Well, I shouldn't say never. I started the game on my Vita. Didn't really get into it at the time, but I've always wanted to try and give it another shot. And I've been thinking about getting the game on the Switch, like if it ever goes on sale or anything like that, or just if I happen to just feel like the urge, like, I'll get the game. But I've always heard plenty of good things about it, seen plenty of good things that the guy's always constantly updating it and everything. And even though I'm not really into this particular genre of video games, it is one that like looking at it from an outsider's perspective. And pretty much a newcomer to it, not counting my time with Animal Crossing.
I was gonna say, wait a minute, you're a total newcomer at 300 hours.
400 hours, Platty.
Oh, my bad, my bad. I'll edit that out.
But I mean, what I meant was that Animal Crossing, doesn't have like the farming stuff going on for it. Not that kind of routine. You freaking smartass. but.
Oh, you missed me the past hour.
See, this is why we said you make such hurtful, like, tell Yangus to shut up comments at the beginning.
Anyway. You only said it because it's true.
It is true. Yeah. The truth hurts, man. The truth hurts. Platty cuts deep.
I do.
But, even though I haven't really played farming sim games, let me specify, I've always looked at this game and I thought to myself, that would be one I'd be willing to try out. And, from the brief time I did play it on the Vita, I did like it. I didn't really put enough time into it that I couldn't really get like a full impression. So I would like to try playing the game again at some point. And whether, I finally, just bite the bullet and like get it on my laptop if I, get Steam again, or get it for the Switch like I've been planning to at some point. I'd love to dive in and check it out. And I'm sure if I do, then I'll probably be coming to you then, Aust, for any questions or advice.
Good. I hope I remember. I hope I remember my play enough to give good advice.
So just before we move on, then just another quick question. So with you having like that much time in it, is that just from your one save file, or is that from you like doing different towns or like doing different setups and things like that?
The 300 hours is from my original save, my
Okay.
1.0 save from PC. Like I said, I have like 70 hours on Switch, and I think that's a couple of different games. I did an evil Joja Mart run and played with my wife a lot, but yeah, most of my time is from my original save.
Okay. Yeah, because I would think it'd be kind of fun with this game, like after, maybe you hit that evaluation mark, you then decide like, oh, I'm going to try and do a new type of farm. And like you said, like they've done updates where they've added new styles. You try and, try out like the more mining focused one or maybe a more river focused one, just for something different, see how that goes out or turns out for you.
One cool thing that they added, I believe it was in 1.5. I haven't played it yet, but like they can randomize the things you have to turn into the community center too, which I think is probably like one of the coolest things ever because I'm a huge randomizer fan. So
yeah, I need to try that.
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah,
he's added so much to the game. It's hard to keep up with.
Well, I know there's like a whole new island now.
Yeah,
that you can go to, and I was like, holy cow! I didn't get to it yet.
Yeah,
70 hours in, I just got the community center open. So
Ginger Island. Actually, when I got my Win 3, the handheld PC, the first thing I did was start up my old save file because that's the thing that's kept me from it. Really is I don't have much time for stationary gaming anymore. Having a handheld on the Switch has been pretty great. So got my handheld PC and started up my old save file and started playing with that again and made it to that Ginger Island. But I haven't really explored it fully yet, so I don't know what the whole deal with it is yet.
I believe there's a third mining area there now too, or a third dungeon in that one.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like I said, I haven't explored it yet. But yeah, I really need to sit down with it and play some of the extra added stuff on my old save. I know I can't change the farm type. I've done that some with the Switch version. I've checked out the other farms, but I haven't done like a full lengthy playthrough since then.
Yep, they got they got a beach farm now where you can't put in sprinklers. I was like, oh my god, who asked for that?
Please no.
That's the challenge run.
That is. I mean, like my whole goal of playing Stardew Valley is when can I get the sprinklers? When can I take that off my plate about watering every single day? Half my life away.
Well, I think. Do you guys have anything else you want to say about Stardew Valley before we get going to the factory?
Well, you know what? I was going to actually flip flop here because I know Aust has played a little bit of Monster Harvest.
Yes, the true successor to Stardew Valley.
Flip flopping? You can't change the order. These scripts are set in stone, man. You can't do that. What are you talking about?
Because I don't know. Has anybody on here played a Rune Factory?
I played. Was it Tides of Destiny?
Oh, okay.
But that was only for like 2 hours. So my experience is very limited.
That might be about how much Oz played of Monster Harvest.
Yeah.
Although at that point, that's about 30% of the game.
I actually only played the demo for Monster Harvest, so I never even bought the game after it came out. Saw your review and some of the other feedback, but I'll let you get to that.
So yeah, this probably won't take more than 2 or 3 minutes. So Monster Harvest, they tried to do the whole Harvest Moon Rune Factory kind of thing, but mix it with Pokemon. They were like, okay, we can do this, but mix it with monster collecting and monster battling, and it's pretty much like everything else. You get the farm. You've got a crazy uncle who is the mad scientist in this town. And he's like, oh, man, there's this slime stuff that's around. And I've come up with all these uses for slime. You should come to my town and help out. And there's an evil company that's doing some bad things with slime. And there's little slimes hopping around places that you can kill. But the main point is to grow plants, put certain slime on your plants, and then they turn into planimals. Took the word plant, took the word animals, planimals. You've got your planimals. And you then take them into fights. Well, seems like a pretty cool idea. I like monster collecting games. I like my kind of indie games like this. I love the pixel stuff. I love the farming. Let's do this. The problem is they put this game off 2 or 3 times in the past year, finally released it at the end of August. They needed to put this game off another 2 or 3 times. It needed another 4 or 5 months cooking. It needed some early access time on Steam or something, because I played it on Switch, but all the versions. I joined their Discord. I think I was like one of the first 5 people on their Discord when they said they were going to announce it, because I had an early copy of it on Switch before release to review, and I was like, oh my god, I'm already lost. What's going on? I need to talk to people. And luckily, it wasn't a developer, it was one of their community managers, gave me some information, and man, the second that game released, that Discord blew up and it was all negative. What the hell? What is this? My game won't start. I mean, they had errors on Xbox that they had to deal with Microsoft with because they didn't know what was going on, and Microsoft was confused about it too. My copy, I had to wait for a day 1 patch, because after about made it through the first... No, I didn't even get through the first month. They had 3 seasons. They called them seasons instead of months or whatever. And you had the light, the dark, and I don't know. It was weird. It wasn't like summer or fall. They decided to give them 3 cool names. It was dark season. It was light season. It was wet season. Oh no, it was wet, dry, and dark. That was the 3 seasons.
Seriously, wet, dry.
Wet, dry. And it started with dry, of which for me on my copy, it rained probably 8 or 9 of the first 20 days. So right away, I'm like, I think they got the RNG wrong on the...
Jeez.
Because, I mean, it was kind of nice because I didn't have to go out there and water my crops a lot the first, like, right off the bat. But I'm like, it is specifically popping up every morning saying, hey, it's dry season day 2, and it's raining. Dry season day 3, and it's raining. I'm like, okay, whatever. The farming parts were pretty good. You got access pretty early in the game to pipes that basically work as sprinklers. So that kind of got taken care of pretty fast. The problem was there wasn't much to do with farming. It was like, okay, so the crops grow and there's like 3 to 5 per month. You could combine some. The scientist dude, if you grew 2 and pick them, you could combine them to get a combination seed, and then that would let you grow a different kind of planimal that was a little bit stronger than the regular ones that you had. And it all that was great, but the combat sucked. The combat was worse than the original Pokemon. You'd go get it. There was 1 dungeon. It ended up having 5 levels total, 5 floors. Boom, the end, the whole dungeon. And this is the only dungeon in the game. And the combat, you could bring in up to 6 planimals, because, hey, just like Pokemon, whatever. Or maybe it was 5. But either way, there was no way to switch out the planimals in battle. There was no way to heal them outside of battle. So if you accidentally got in a battle and your planimal was had 10 hit points, you knew he was just a goner. And the planimals just died. Like, they were gone. You'd get some, little points or something that you could then use to raise the crop level of your farm so that your next planimals that you grew would be better. And I guess that's the whole design process, but playing monster collecting games, I wasn't up for a Nuzlocke. What is it? The Nuzlocke challenge or whatever?
Yeah, Nuzlocke.
The whole game's a Nuzlocke challenge. You're just killing your monsters over and over again. And I mean, that goes fast. There's no way, like I said, there's no items to use in battle. There's no way to flip them out in battle. Like, okay, this guy's getting weak, let me put in the next guy. Nope, he battles till he dies. Or if he can miraculously win the combat, then you could switch them out. But, I mean, again, the way the game's designed, they're kind of hoping you die a lot so that you can raise your farm level so that maybe the next time you go breed some guy or grow some planimals, they start out at level 3 or 4. And it just, that loop was sucked. And I beat the boss, the thing at the bottom of the mine, by the end of the 2nd season. And it kind of gave you a hint that you needed to go to their little community center and battle people every Friday. And sure enough, you'd go there, and it was almost like being at a Pokemon gym. You had to you could fight like 2 or 3 townspeople, and get to like a boss of the day. And after about 7 Sundays, you fought the boss of the evil company, and it was done. Like, okay. But you wouldn't know the game was done on Switch unless you talk to people. The only reason people knew on PlayStation that the game was done, or on PC that you had quote unquote beat the game, was you got an achievement for beating that person. And they were like, oh, that's it. And they confirmed that there were no credits or anything. It could just go on forever like all these games usually do. But I was like, I want to see roll credits. Like, what can I do now?
Yeah,
the whole
oh, sorry, go ahead.
It was so obscure. And to make it even worse, I like the list of errors. If you go on RP Gamer, if you Google this thing and Google RP Gamer review, I gave it a 1.5 out of 5. And there's an entire paragraph with all the things that went wrong with me. Like in the second season, suddenly my crops wouldn't grow anymore. I had to do save, turn off the game, reload just to get crops to keep growing. After the first season, I couldn't combine crops into the mutant crops that grow you the stronger plantimals anymore. That just didn't work. I opened up the greenhouse that you should be able to grow crops out of season. Like, once again, a lot of these games have. That didn't work. Nothing grew in the greenhouse. It just was an empty building that wouldn't grow anything. You were supposed to grow certain plantimals that there's 3 types of plantimals you could grow. You could grow the ones that you take in the battle. You could grow ones that then could go in your barn and be the livestock. After my livestock got to a certain age, they were supposed to produce items like you get in the games, and then you could craft with those items and whatever. Yeah, that never happened. They showed that they had an item produced, but I could never collect it. That was a glitch. So never got to experience that at all. There was plantimals that you could grow to ride around on. Not that there was very many places to ride to, but it was supposed to be fast travel. You know, you could ride these things. There was a big glitch where if you did that, they wouldn't be in the stables most of the time. Sometimes you just encounter them in random places, or sometimes they'd just be gone. So that was a big one. Like, okay, so there's another gameplay feature I couldn't have. The NPCs were completely lifeless. Talk about Stardew Valley, just the interaction with all the townsfolk being awesome. And a lot of these games, yes, this was lifeless. They all had one line. There would be like a festival twice a month. You'd go to the festival. They'd have a second line. But then there was nothing else to do at the festival. It was like, okay, I really literally walked here just to hear another line. There's no contest. There's no game. There's no nothing. It was just an empty game. Like, they need so much more content. Beside the bugs, I think if all the bugs were perfectly fine, I'd still have given it like a 2 out of 5 because the combat just sucked. It was ridiculous. And everything just felt featureless. They tried to throw a bunch of stuff in there, but it just was meh.
It's like that. It sounds like that saying where, you throw it at the wall, but it doesn't stick. And it really sounds like that's what happened with this game.
I felt like nothing stuck, and it was all broken anyway.
Yeah, this was what I was going to say before. Platty had been messaging me some of his experiences with the game when he was getting his review written up. And I remember the last one he sent me was about how the game ended and how it just was so anticlimactic. And I was even looking at the screen and I'm like, I can't even tell what it says. How can you tell you even beat the game? Because the text is so
you couldn't tell what
small.
It said because the text was so small.
Yeah,
that was the other thing.
I'm like, because I figured when Platty sent me the picture, I'm like, oh, okay, well, maybe I just need to zoom the picture, and I'm just not reading it. My eyes must be kind of blurry or something. So I enlarged the picture, and even after trying to get it as clear as I couldn't freaking read it. I'm like, geez, how do you even know what's even going on in this stupid game? You can't even read what the hell's happened.
Before we get a couple memories from Aust about this, MattCraft, you're quickly running out of juice tonight.
Yep. The only thing I really have to say before I go is talking about New Horizons a little bit, kind of jutting back. I know y'all have found at least one of the wands that lets you hold up to 1 million customizations for your outfits. Don't tell me y'all ain't used it. And don't tell me y'all ain't have at least one Sailor Moon outfit on it.
Yeah, my Animal Crossing New Horizons character is dressed up like the hero from Dragon Quest V, so...
Oh. Well, I got mine dressed up like a king right now because I finally got the royal crown, which costs like 1.2 million bells.
I don't know if I'm disturbed by that or not. You should totally go for at least one Power Ranger-based cosplay or Sailor Moon.
I did an Iron Man one. Does that count?
I'll let you have that. You can have that one.
Oh no, I think I'd be more disturbed if I had the Sailor Moon outfit, but that's just me.
I've got one.
But
I just say that in that voice. I'm sorry. All right, but anyway, I am out as my phone is at 4% now. So good night, and y'all have a wonderful evening.
see ya.
Thanks, MattCraft.
Yep, you take care.
Thank you for having me. Bye. So there we go.
So, Ost, what did you do in the demo?
Yeah, so I don't have a ton to say, but yeah, like I said, I played the demo only as soon as I saw that it was available on PC. Pretty much, I feel a little validated by your statements on the combat, because that was I think where the demo lost me, because it seemed so difficult right off the bat, like diving into that dungeon.
Oh, you're meant to die on floor 1 multiple times. Like, you got to sacrifice a whole lot of planimals.
Yeah, and it's sort of like advertising that it's Pokemon meets Stardew Valley. That's not really what Pokemon is about. It isn't about disposable monsters. You get attached to your Pokemon, and even if you get better ones, you don't really just get rid of the ones you have. Like, I still have Pokemon dating back to Generation 3 on my modern cartridges that I've transferred up. But, this diving into that dungeon, I think my monster died right away. And like you said, even if you have 2 monsters, there's no way to, like, switch them out in combat. Is that true?
Correct. Yeah, there's not in the middle of the combat. You got to wait till one dies to bring in somebody else.
Yes. Yeah, I wasn't sure if I was just missing something on how to, navigate the combat menu, or because I don't even remember if it gave me a tutorial. If it did, it didn't feel like it was very helpful.
That was another thing. There's no tutorials in that game. I mean, I did fine because I've played so many of these games, and I think I did better because I was just coming off playing Stardew Valley.
Yeah.
Like, literally the day before it came out. So I was like, oh, okay. But after a while, I realized, wait a minute, nothing taught me how to do this. I only did it because I've played Harvest Moon and Stardew Valleys before. Like, you're not going to teach anything to the player here?
Yeah. So, yeah, that was another of my problems. Like, I feel like it probably told me a little bit the gist of, like, plantimals and planting stuff, and you can tell this game didn't leave much of an impression on me. And it was just the demo, to be fair. Like, I haven't played the full game, so I guess I could be missing out some things. But from what I've seen from your review and just general feedback, my experience doesn't seem too far from the norm.
I think something I messaged some of my friends at RP Gamer to talk about when I was like, oh, I think you're going to mention this probably, because every week they've got a podcast where they go through a bunch of the reviews from staff, and they're talking about, new game releases. And I was like, you know what? This game will probably be completely average in about a year. Once they put a bunch of stuff in it that they said they were actually going to do, it'll be okay.
Yeah, I love the concept of it. Like
oh yeah,
Pokemon meets Stardew Valley. What's not to like in that concept? But I guess it just seems like they just didn't quite live up to expectations.
I don't think they understood what makes either one of those good. Like you said, Pokemon, you've got ones you've transferred through half a dozen systems probably in games all the way up from Gen 3. And Stardew Valley, Drippy was talking about, he wrote the creator because he felt like one of the NPCs was talking just to him in one of the little heart event things. And that is those two things right there are something this doesn't have. You don't have animals that you keep or that grow with you. They're there to maybe grow a level or two and then die to make your soil better and basically turn into fertilizer. And the NPCs were completely pointless.
See, I hate that. I hate that concept of the plantimals are fertilizer. Not a fan of that. But that may just be a matter of taste. Like, that it's perfectly fine. There's maybe somebody out there who likes that concept about this game, and maybe that just means it's not for me. But
I mean, and that's something I don't think they'll change, because that's a gameplay aspect. That's like how your farm gets better quality crops and stuff. So,
in my opinion, then in order to make this interesting for me, which maybe that's a little arrogant of me to ask the developer to tailor this game for me. But if that's the case, that's such a core gameplay mechanic. They really need to focus hard on the community aspect and Stardew Valley like mechanics in general, because and make the Pokemon thing like make it service the farming aspect, I guess, more so than anything else, because I don't know, the combat didn't do it for me. And if the combat isn't interesting, then that means you have to find it engaging to collect monsters, which it doesn't seem like that's really a thing either.
No, you can have, like I said, you can either have 5 or 6 with you at any time, and there's a pen that you can have on the farm, and I believe you can have 6 there. And that was another thing that already people in the community, because the people that were on the Discord there were already upset, because I think there were 4 monsters each go round every season. Or maybe there were 3 or 4. No, there had to be 4, because then you could get upgraded versions of them by like crossing the seeds together before you replant them. So it ended up being like 6 or 7 different monsters you could get every season, and then there's 3 seasons. Well, that's already more than you can hold and have in your farm, so they couldn't have one of everybody.
Oh yeah, see, I don't like that either.
You couldn't get them all.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I know this isn't Pokemon, but that's the deal.
Yeah, like if that's where you're going to try to hang your hat, it surely wasn't on the Pokemon aspect. It surely wasn't on the farming aspect. Yeah. Where are you standing out? Nowhere.
But hey, maybe they'll make some improvements over time, and in a couple of years it may be different. Who knows? At the very least, they'll get the bugs fixed.
Yes, I've stopped going to the Discord all the time, but I keep it down there, so I get an announcement every time they release a patch or something, and every time I see that, they're like, "Oh, Switch users, it'll be a few weeks out. PC users, it's live today."
Yeah.
Such is life.
Until they get all of the bugs fixed, I couldn't recommend it personally.
No, it's definitely got issues, but again, next summer, maybe something that you circle back to. I know Graveyard Keeper, which I'm going to talk about for 1 minute here, because if you want to hear more about it, you can listen to our episode about, spooky games that we did almost exactly a year ago, Yangus. It was our October 2020 one.
Yes, it was our big October/Halloween episode that we did.
Mm-hmm. I thought, I looked at that one when it first came out on PC and Switch, then not too long after, and just kept reading reviews, and it was like, it's so meh, it's so okay, whatever. So I waited a full year, probably was about a year and a half then from PC release, got the Switch version with all the DLC, and I had a blast with it, man. I put 70, 80 hours into it. It was a funny death version of all these games. You could get little reincarnated corpses to do your farming for you, and you could a lot of the supplies that you were getting was because people were bringing you dead bodies, and you're like, oh, let me pull the guts out of that and turn that into fertilizer, or the heart out of this and do that with it. And
you just repurpose everything.
Yeah, and Stardew Valley's got the community center that you're always working to improve. This one, you were next to a church, and the way you kept up the graveyards and improved the church got you a lot of bonuses that then was in town too. So that was a fun game. That was a fun take on it, and it was definitely something that I waited a long time. I waited till they patched the heck out of it and added DLC, and I played through the DLC, and it had a lot of good story stuff in there. Even though their NPCs were kind of not very interactive, but they had a DLC that really kind of fixed that too. And, for $15, I got 70, 80 hours of fun out of it. And maybe in a year or two, you can with that Monster Harvest as well. So we are dropping members left and right as we get later on into the evening.
And then
Twinkie,
there were 3.
Yep. Twinkie, did you want to talk about what you remember of Rune Factory Tides of Destiny?
I honestly don't remember much about it. I can't say much on it. So I mean, I didn't hate the game or anything. It's just I haven't played much of it to really form a good opinion on it. So
what did you play it on?
PS3, I think it was.
Yeah. So I played all of Rune Factory 1, 2, 3, and 4 pretty much as they came out. I think I delayed 2 until right after 3 came out and played those out of order. But 1, 3, and 4 were like day one release, play, love it. And then circled back to 2 when I finally realized that I'd missed 2. And holy cow, number 3 is out. I better get going and play these games. Just loved the concept of it. It was basically Harvest Moon plus a JRPG, an action JRPG. And I'm not the biggest action gamer, and the way that it did combat, it was pretty simple. If anybody's played, what was the Fantasy Life? The combat in there was pretty simple throughout, because there was like 12 different ways to play that game, picking 12 different jobs, and Rune Factory pretty much did that. Rune Factory was like and Fantasy Life came much later. It was Fantasy Life, Harvest Moon. It was a lovely JRPG take on it all. I've just played. I played 4 again on the Switch when it got re-released a year and a half ago. Reviewed that, loved the hell out of it, and can't wait for 5 to come up. I loved them on the DS and the 3DS. Thought they were perfect. I did and never had a Wii really long enough to get into playing them on the Wii. They did come out with 2 on the Wii, and then 1 got ported over to the PS3 as well. There was a Tides of Destiny game. I rented it via, I don't even know if you can do this anymore. Like PS Now, you used to be able to rent games on PS4 and stream them to your PS4. And I think I paid like $19 for a 90-day rental of this game. Absolutely loved it. Put about 30 or 40 hours into it in a month. And then my second son was born. And his sleeping habits, I could never play my PS4 at night anymore. It was done for. 60 days of my rental went by and I never got to play it again. But that one was really cool because the first 4 games, you had your farm. You would go to different dungeons and you'd have to work your way progressively, and you'd grow better crops so that you could level up your farm, and you went out and beat dungeons because they were story related too. But at the same time, if you went into this dungeon, you'd get, the iron and the copper and the silver and the gold, so you could make better farm equipment, so you could more efficiently farm to get more money to buy better equipment to go into harder dungeons. And that gameplay loop where you were doing both at the same time was great. Like in Harvest Moon and everything, I mean, you're just farming for the sake of getting a better farm or doing the stuff for the townspeople. But Rune Factory adds a whole JRPG story onto that. Sometimes it's batshit crazy, sometimes it's funny, but it's just pretty awesome. I know Rune Factory 2, you would go beat these 4 dungeons, but in the 4 dungeons, there'd always be these like little barriers, like barricades, and you couldn't get through them, and you could tell that they went somewhere, and looking at the map and be like, well, what the heck happened? And then as you get married and have a child, suddenly the game time skips farther. And you're the child playing. And there's still these things going on. But hey, you're the child now. You can slip between the cracks in these dungeons and go do other stuff. And that was pretty awesome. These games have so much more crafting to them. Like Stardew Valley may have 50, 60, 70 things that you can craft together. I mean, Rune Factory's got 7, by the time you get up to 4, there's like 7 different weapon types, and there's probably 30 or 40 of each of those weapons in the game that you can make with just various stuff. And that doesn't even include the food, and it doesn't even include better farming tools and everything. It's just got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of stuff. And I hate to say it, if it didn't have such anime and JRPG elements to it, they'd probably sell awesome, like a Stardew Valley, but, not everybody but goes out and buys like anime looking games. So you get this kind of Stardew Valley interaction with a lot of the townspeople and everything, but it's little chibi-fied and it's got anime looks to it, and the boxes right off the bat, you're like, oh, I'm buying a anime-ass JRPG. And you look at the sales of games that sell a lot, and it's not always anime-ass JRPGs, unfortunately. Maybe with us, we do that, but the Tides of Destiny was really cool. It kind of took you away from what the other games were. The other games were you're on a farm, you're in a big land, whatever. Tides of Destiny, you were on an island, and you kept going to other islands. Even your farming mainly took place on other islands, and at one point you resurrected this thing that would like an island that would like walk through the water, and you could dig up other islands to go to and like get resources from them. This one went back to one of the themes they have is like usually there'll be like 4 seasonal dungeons. You've got the summer dungeon and the fall dungeon and the stuff, and you can grow crops in those dungeons as well. That was really cool. Just this year, plugged in a Wii and got my kids playing some Wii games and some GameCube games on it, and I was like, oh, maybe I should buy myself Frontier. I never played the other one that was on the Wii, because looking at Tides of Destiny for the Wii, I believe you can only play it with the Wiimote. Like, you can't use a controller.
Oh, like you can on PlayStation. Gotcha.
Yep, and I was like, no, I'm not going to play this by moving a motion control the whole time. But I read that Frontier worked with the controllers that you could plug into the Wiimote. So bought one of those old third-party, it feels like an old, just regular, almost like a PS controller that plugs into the Wiimote. And I put like 15 or 20 hours into Frontier. It just felt so empty. Like you were back to having a farm outside of town and different dungeons to go into. But I don't know if there just wasn't enough NPCs or the land was just so big. But like it was like I was into winter, 3rd, 4th season in the game, and I was still meeting NPCs in random places like, oh, I've never encountered you before. What the heck? Like it was too spread out, and it had a little system where you had to have these things called Runies. They were I think the whole land was broken up into like 12 little zones, and every time you went from one zone to the next, basically every time the screen had to load and you went off the screen, there were these 4 elemental Runies, and if you didn't manage to, and they just floated around like little fireflies basically. If you didn't keep their numbers in balance, that zone would lose balance and it could affect your farm area and whatever. So you're just like, okay, I got to run to the mountains, catch these stupid little 3 red fireflies, bring them to my farm so that I've got 3 red, 3 blue, 3 yellow, 3 green on my farm. And you wake up the next day and all the blues were dead. You're like, son of a bitch. Now I got to go all the way over to the water area and start catching some, and sometimes they'd all just die out in an area, and I don't know, the Rooney management was just way too much. So between that and I felt like I got a good idea of the game. I beat the first dungeon. I almost beat the second out of 4 big dungeons. I did some sky stuff up in the sky because there was another dungeon that you could keep making progress in as you finished off the main dungeons, and I was like, okay, so this is another Rune Factory, just not as good as all the DS. It wasn't as tight. I think they tried to make it too big because it was on the Wii instead of being on the DS and the 3DS like all their other titles were. So I'm 50-50 on what Rune Factory 5 might bring. I hope they keep the magic that went through the first 4. Not so much what Frontier tried on the Wii. Tides of Destiny, I think, did it great. At least kept it sectioned off, and the island that you start on was very small and concise, and everybody was right there. You could walk around it in 5 minutes and pretty much hit up all the town folk every day, just check in, give them gifts and whatever. Gosh darn it, I would love a remake of that game or just a port of that to something that I have. Never had the PS3, so sad. But yeah, Rune Factory 5's coming up in, I think, March of next year, March 22. So sounds good. And I think with that, Yangus, we're done, right?
Huh? What? What? Yeah.
Since you did not decide to flood your backyard and start growing rice.
No. I did put at the end just briefly that, any games that of this genre that we were looking forward to. I listed 2 real quick, and I'll just quickly talk about them. One of them was Sakuna of Rice and Ruin. It was a game that was published by Xseed last year, about this time, if I remember right. It was either October or November when it came out. I always try and pay attention to like the stuff that Xseed or now lately I've been trying to pay attention to what NIS America will try and bring over here to the stateside, because when Xseed originally announced that this game was going to be getting a Western release, I had never heard of it before, didn't know it was a brand new entry, or a brand new game. I thought it was like an entry in a series that just never, made it over here. And I was interested in it because it was a game that was combining like farm sim elements along with your character going off and collecting materials and stuff via platforming and fighting sections. And I'm like, well, that seems like an interesting concept. I did, it was something that I had kept my eye on. I saw there was getting a Switch version, so I'm like, okay, cool. That'd be, makes sense for a game like that to also be on Switch, for the sake of portability. So if you want to, work on your rice farming and other stuff like that, while you're watching TV or whatever. And I ended up picking up, oh goodness, it was this year when I finally picked the game up. I believe it was in January or February, something like that. Like Amazon had the the collector's box on sale for like $50 or something. So I'm like, oh, sure, I'll buy that. Why not? I want to support the game because it is one I am interested in. I was going to try and get it started and so I could talk about it for tonight's episode. But with work, I just ended up not starting the game because I just didn't really want to try and get into something brand new while we were... just didn't want to try and get into something new just because of my work schedule and stuff being kind of thrown through a loop a bit with real life stuff going on. So I ended up not starting it, but I do want to play it. I might not end up starting it until next year, maybe even past that. I'm not really sure. But I think it's an interesting idea for a farming game, and I really like the art style for it. And actually, the game did get some promotion in Smash Brothers Ultimate because I think it was either last month or in August. They actually had an event for Sakuna of Rice and Ruin where they added 3 characters from the game as spirits that you could fight in the spirit board. Which included the main character Sakuna, one of the little, I believe it's a spirit that can assist you. Looks like this little dog character. And there was I believe it was a goddess of the harvest or a goddess of time. I don't fully remember, and unfortunately, without having played the game, I don't know exactly the connections for all that. But it was cool to see it because when following like the sales and like how the game has done, like a lot of people really like it. Apparently, the Switch version sold a ton of copies, both in Japan and over here in the West. I think it's sold over 1 million copies by this point too, when you combine all the releases. So. I mean, for this being, a first-time entry for a series and, being more of a smaller project, it's pretty cool. And I'm glad that the developers were able to make something that a lot of people, wanted to get into. The other game and this one I admittedly am not 100% sure if it is a farming type game. It's called Garden Story. It was one that was revealed in a Nintendo Direct for indie game. Oh, excuse me, it's Grape Story, not Garden Story. Pardon me. It was a game that was revealed in one of the Nintendo Indie Directs a few months ago. I really liked the look of the game. It has a very simple, sprite art style. If you've ever seen Mother 3 or any of the game, like that sort of era of the GBA, it kind of has that look. Like when I saw it, I'm like, oh, that looks very inspired by Mother 3's graphical look.
Hey, hold on there, Yangus. It is Garden Story.
It is?
Yes, you play as a young grape in the grove, but it is called Garden Story. So
Yeah,
got a
look
little,
it up.
yeah.
Oh, whoops. Type that in there wrong. I'm glad I said Garden Story first thing, because I'm like, well, no, my notes say Grape Story, so whoops.
Okay. Yeah, I saw your notes too, and I'm like, oh, damn, I haven't heard of that.
Okay,
You are a grape, though, so honestly,
yes.
yeah, no, there you go.
Yeah, okay. So, yes, it is called Garden Story. So, anyway, when I saw the game at that direct, or in that indie direct, it was kind of like that, a short hike game from last year where I saw it and I was immediately like, that looks like something that I'd really like. And I had that exact same feeling with Garden Story, because I thought, oh, this one looks like a game that'd be kind of up my alley. And seeing how it's, again, I'm not 100% sure if it is a farming sim, but the impression that I've got is that it does have a lot of that, town building, relationship sort of thing that you'd find in like Harvest Moon or Rune Factory, things like that. But then you also have combat where you have different weapons you can like choose from. There's enemies called the Rot, which I assume are just supposed to be, like either like zombified fruits or something like that are coming to attack. And it just looked like what's the word? Like kind of like just a nice comfort sort of game. And I always like trying to check out some indie games that sort of, what with indie games, you really got to try and find the ones that, really catch your eye. Because sometimes if you get one, it could be like, oh, unfortunately, like with what you had with Monster Harvest Platy, where you saw it and you're like, oh, that looks really cool. And then it just ended up being like, oh, that's kind of a stinker,
Well,
sometimes you have to
looking at Metacritic here. Looking at Metacritic, the end all be all. No, this game's reviewed pretty well. It's not like super high, but even all the user reviews are either positive or kind of on the high end of the mixed. So doesn't look like they screwed the pooch like Monster Harvest, but that honestly, this is kind of the meta scores that a lot of these games that aren't Stardew Valley at the top kind of get. So. Mm-hmm. Might be pretty good. Yeah, that does look like Game Boy Advance graphics.
Mm-hmm. And that's that is kind of what I like about it too, because like along with the graphics, like if you see any of the artwork that is used to promote the game, like on the eShop or elsewhere, they have a really nice art style. There's really good use of colors. Character designs are fairly simple. Like our main character is this little grape, he just has a little face, a little stick arms and legs, and has a little green to him as well. But it like the way that they draw him and gives him enough character to let you know, like, okay, this is our hero. He wants to, he looks like a friendly little character, and I really think that's one of the benefits of the game. Even within the game itself, with its sprite style, it has a lot of personality to it, even though it's so simple. Which I think if a developer is able to do that sort of thing, and kind of express that sort of creativity through the appearance of the game or like promotional materials with like the artwork itself, then you can kind of get that sense, at least in my opinion, that they are passionate about that project. Passionate about that game. So that's something else that when I saw it, it's like, okay, this one looks like it'd be a fun one to check out. So, even though this isn't like a genre that have been super into other than Animal Crossing, which doesn't really have the farming stuff to it. Like Sakuna and Garden Story here were ones that have caught my eye, and it's like, oh, maybe it's an age thing too, where I'm just trying to try more stuff or whatever, but it's like, oh, these look like they would be fun games and sort of stuff that I could get into. Maybe you guys had the same thing, like you saw Stardew Valley and other stuff like that. Or like when Platty, you saw Rune Factory for the first time, it's like, oh, it looks like something I'd be into. So it could just be a case of that for me. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'd played a lot of I wasn't here when you were talking Harvest Moon earlier, but I'd played plenty of Harvest Moon in my younger days, and eventually it was like, I know what to expect. It is what it is. You played one, you played it all. Not exactly, but... And then I saw Rune Factory, I'm like, what? I can swing a sword and still raise my crops? Holy crap. And that just has hooked me for hundreds of hours over multiple games.
Twinkie, before we wrap things up, are there any games from this particular genre that you haven't played that you'd like to play at some point, or like any future games that are coming?
Yeah. We talked about Rune Factory 5 briefly. I'm kind of looking forward to that, but the nearest game I'm thinking of playing shortly is Rune Factory 4S, the Switch version, I believe it is. I ended up picking it up a while back, and I haven't played it yet. So, because for some reason, even though I'm a huge fan of Harvest Moon and JRPGs, for some reason, I don't know how I got this far in life. I just never played one yet. So, outside of Ties of Destiny. So, I'm probably going to start that game up pretty shortly, too. And another game I'm actually was thinking about playing is Graveyard Keeper. I don't know too much about it.
I loved that.
But yeah, I heard a lot of good things about it. A friend gifted me a copy of it last year, and I haven't gotten around to it. And, it's Halloween time, so I think it's time to start playing that too. So
yeah, also game, it had humor. It had humor. It doesn't take itself seriously, but it's like a dry humor. Like you get a donkey who just drops off a dead body at your doorstep every morning. Like, well, here's another one.
Oh, I like dry humor. So
yeah. Right. So I mean, it didn't try to go out of its way with puns and crap. It was the dude died. Cut him up. Do whatever. There's a whole plot line where you're trying to impress the bishop, and the bishop's like, man, we got to kill more witches. What are we going to do? Can you set up a hot dog stand outside the witch burnings we have every Sunday? Let's do this. And you can sell the meat that you harvest from bodies to the local pub for money. That's one of the things you got to do early on. So I mean, there's all this just little like, oh my god, I can't believe you're doing that. But it turns out to be, I mean, you get a whole operation going as you're able to revive corpses later on and turn them into like a lot of these things. The automation of your farm, and you are growing stuff. You got to have crops and this and that. Because you gotta make the stuff for the burgers and the buns for the witch burning things and the quests and it's got I think like 15 levels of Stardew Valley-esque battles, and it's not much, just a little something to do for one of the plot lines. So it's got that too. But I mean, I didn't go through all the DLC. There's one where you can get into the past of a lot of people. There's another one where you can open up your own store, and it's pretty great that Like at one point you're like getting money, like part of that quest line is you're trying to get a lot of stuff and buy a plot of land from the local restaurant, bar, or whatever. And then I think at the last time when you finally buy it from him, he's like, so what are you going to do with that? You're like, open my own bar. He's like, what? I mean, there's not a lot of dialogue, but what they do, they use it pretty good.
Awesome. Actually, you know what? I'm going to install it right now.
What did you get it for PC or Switch?
I got it on PC.
Mm-hmm. I think that has been on my Steam wish list for probably 3 years now because I still get emails like it's on sale. I'm like, damn, I beat that on my Switch 2 years ago. I gotta remember to take that off. But no, it's a good game. And like I said, I didn't play it until a good year and a half went by, and it patched up everything and whatever. And for something like that, I don't know what else that developer's done, but I mean, I never read bad reviews, but I did not expect to really like it as much as I did, and I think it was. They probably listened to their. I'm sure it's got a lot of Stardew Valley people that played it and commented like hell until they got the development really good with that.
Yeah, I'm surprised that they even did DLC for it.
Yeah, and I picked it up on Switch. I think when I bought it and the DLC, I probably didn't even pay $20 altogether.
Oh wow! All right.
As Oz commented as he logged off, but before he went to bed, that crappy Monster Harvest game that I was talking about is selling for more than Stardew Valley. I'm like, really?
Yes.
Like, I mean, first of all, Stardew Valley really kills the value of a lot of these games being set at $15 with 5 years of free updates and all the content that you can get. You know, how many people here played it for 300 plus hours?
All right.
And then I look at me like, oh man, I'll be getting that Rune Factory day one and I'll be paying $60 for this game next year. I know it's different, but gosh darn it. Can you give me 4 times the value of Stardew Valley? No, you can't. All right, Yangus, we ready to put this one to bed?
Yep. You know, we've been
like
going at it for what almost feels like 300 hours. No, I'm just kidding. It's been a good discussion tonight with all the different games and everything. And I mean, like I said earlier, we got a lot more out of some of these topics than I thought we were going to. I didn't think we were going to talk about Animal Crossing and even Harvest Moon as long as we did. So, you know, that was it. I mean, we got a lot of good discussion, like I said. So that was great, you know, especially for this being an episode that we planned pretty quickly too.
Oh yeah, it was like last Wednesday, Thursday. Like, hey, let's do this month. Okay, cool. Hey, I'm only free next Tuesday. Can we do it next Tuesday? And then I find out I'm not free. But Twinkie, thanks for coming on.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Thanks to finally talk to you after years on the forums and Discord and everything.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Really liked it. So
yeah, we definitely want to thank Drippy for helping out with hosting while Matt was preoccupied with the hockey game he was at, and we want to thank Aust and we want to thank MattCraft for joining us tonight too. And of course, as Plata said, we want to give you a big thank you too, Twinkie, since first time being on here. And it was great talking to you. We talked about a bit before how mainly been talking through like text chats and things like that. So having you on for the first time, hopefully we weren't too crazy for you, and you would be willing to come back.
Oh no, it was fine. It was fine. So.
He's used to our craziness, is what he's saying, Platty.
Yeah, essentially.
Good. You know what? Since this was such a chill podcast about chill games and everything, I'm going to be chill and not even mention that word that we never mention. Not even going to say it. That word that we don't say, I'm actually not going to say.
All right.
So we can skip right past that.
Okay. I suppose we can. But you should probably, let other people know about the link that Woodis has on his den. I hope you support the site.
Oh my gosh. Oh, yes. Even though I don't say the one word, the other word I should always say is the Dragon's Den. If you happen to have some money that you're not going to go pee away on the P site, then you can definitely go to the D site, the double D site even, the Dragon's Den. Woodis has got a brand new banner right at the top of the Dragon's Den to link to Amazon. So unless you want to just like ship off some money straight to Woodis, he's kept those lights on for 20 plus years now. You could always do that. Or if I've talked about it a long time, you got to go buy a refrigerator. You got to buy yourself some new underwear. You got to buy some toenail clippers. I don't know what you got to buy, but if you're listening to us, I think you know what Amazon is. You probably got Amazon. You might have Amazon Prime. And if you've got a wife, you've probably got boxes coming every 3 days. Sorry, every lady out there, totally sexist comment, whatever. Mine does, so I'm just personifying everybody like that.
Lady, we're going to lose that demographic now. What the hell?
Let me tell you, I'll be looking at our stats online, and it's going to go from like 97% men to 98, and I'm just going to feel bad that one lady who ever listened to us, I've now insulted her. If you are that one lady, please keep listening. But no, we know our demographics, know them well. But if you do visit the den, you can always buy anything you want through Amazon, and Woodus will get a little bit to help support that den. Doesn't cost you a penny.
If you have any suggestions for a future SideQuest episode, we'd love to hear from you. You can contact both Platty and myself at the Dragon's Den directly through the forums. You can contact us via the Dragon's Den Discord, which is run by our buddy Brurian. You can also contact you can contact Platty via his Twitter, PlattyM3, and let him know about any ideas there. With all those ways to contact us, you can let us know about any topics you want us to either revisit, new topics we could talk about in the future. We're totally open to new ideas for episodes, and we have a list full of them, so be happy to add some more if you are willing to throw out some suggestions to us.
Definitely. Bye, everyone.
Side quest complete, partner.